Dudes on Movies podcast with your hosts, Scott Charboneau and David Lynn Miller.
Welcome to Dudes on Movies. I'm your dude, Scott.
I'm your dude, Dave.
And today we're discussing 1985's The Breakfast Club, directed by John Hughes and starring Molly Ringwald and Judd Nelson. But before we do that, let's talk about what we've been watching. Dave, what have you been watching?
I saw Smile 2.
Smile 2?
Yeah. It seems strange to give a brand new movie such credit, but I think this might be one of the most successful sequels I've ever seen.
Wow.
Dude, I mean, everything you appreciate about the first movie is there, but they not only expand on it, the curse is also just as relentless as it was before, probably more so. And I have one small complaint about the opening of the film because there's an inconsistency that makes it kind of hard to understand. But other than that, I can't recommend this movie highly enough. It's so good.
Nice. I remember when you recommended the first one.
Yep.
I had thought it looked horrible from the trailer, which shocked you.
It did.
But you convinced me to watch it, and boy, oh boy, I'm
Yes.
glad you did, because it's amazing.
You were very scared and you thought it was great.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
I was scared that it would suck.
Yes. Right.
But I actually just turned out to be scared.
You just turned
because
out to
it was
be
scary.
really scared. Right, yes.
Smile 2 is on my list, Dave.
Smile 2 is great.
And your recommendation makes it go up further on the list.
Excellent.
I watched something with an axe murderer in it called So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Dude,
it's
excellent.
the Mike Myers comedy vehicle from 1993.
Yep.
I think it's kind of a forgotten film from that era, but I'd never seen it before, and I was talking to a couple people at work about it, and I was like, I gotta watch this, because it's always been just in the back of my head as a curiosity. Some Mike Myers deep cut, and man, I loved it. It was so funny.
I know.
I freaking loved that movie.
Yeah, I watched it maybe a year ago or something like that, and I couldn't believe how much I really enjoyed all the character work in it that he does with his parents, and that dad character is excellent.
It's like a proto fat bastard.
It is, but it's like all the good stuff.
Right, it's the good stuff. It's none of the nasty or racist stuff.
He doesn't do anything disgusting. He's just an old man who likes to yell a lot, and he's very funny.
He's at that wedding singing Rod Stewart.
It's
pretty good.
Really good, yeah.
If you want my body. It's so good, man.
Yep, that's right.
But I would totally recommend it. I thought it was funny. I really liked the romantic relationship. I thought it was just great.
Yeah, him and Nancy Travis are a really good couple, and the tension is the tension is
right,
the tension.
and I think it's a great original premise,
Yeah.
and it doesn't fall too hard on tired tropes. I mean, it has some romantic comedy tropes, of course,
Right.
but I think it does a great job balancing it and making it a worthwhile watch.
Yes.
So everybody watch this movie. So I Married an Axe Murderer. All right, Dave. So let's talk about another movie everyone should watch, The Breakfast Club. Why don't you give everyone a synopsis?
Yes. Well, this is another John Hughes joint about teenage life in Reagan's America. And this time it's 5 kids forced to spend a Saturday in detention where they eventually get to know each other, and they learn what life is like for other people, and they teach the school principal a much-needed lesson about judging people. This is another one where, obviously, guys, if you're listening to this show, you've likely seen this movie multiple times, and so hopefully you'll have some nostalgic fun hearing us go through it.
Yeah, it's a big nostalgia movie for many people. I've only seen it a couple times, Dave.
Okay.
And I didn't even catch it till I was probably 18 years old, I think.
Okay.
I never watched it when I was younger. I actually traded my Aquabats DVD for it from my buddy had the tape of Breakfast Club. He's like, you got to watch it. I'm like, okay, you want to borrow this Aquabats concert DVD?
Oh, my gosh.
And we each have each other's things still. So I have the Breakfast Club on tape, and he has my Aquabats DVD.
I think you made out better.
I did, but I also have the Breakfast Club on DVD too. I mean,
well, sure.
That Aquabats DVD I'm missing.
That's true. Yeah, you're right. You're down one disc.
That's
yeah,
all right, though.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the movie is amazing. Like the first time I watched it, I said I was 18 maybe.
Yeah.
So there's not much more of a perfect age to watch the movie than being in your teens.
Oh, of course.
So, I mean, it speaks so much to everything you're feeling in life during that time.
Yes.
I mean, even as adults, you can totally relate to it because not only have you been through all this, right, but you have more perspective now on life. You've lived more life. And
of
you can
course.
realize, wow, I was kind of a shitty kid. I was in that situation.
Yeah.
I wish I thought about things that way back then. And this movie just delivers all of that to you in just a tasty little bite, man.
Absolutely, man. And even the stuff that you can still relate to as an adult watching the to hearing about kid problems, you're both really identifying with them and also cringing a bit at all the things that maybe, like you thought it was more serious than it was at the time. Because, I mean, obviously, when you're a teenager, everything feels like deadly serious in the moment.
Yeah.
And like your life is over with every, ensuing humiliation. Because it feels that way. I mean, everything, you're not an adult yet, but you have you have adult features and adult physicality, which really sucks.
Yeah. You're not an adult yet, and you might not want to be.
Uh-huh.
So, Dave, this was one of your picks for the
Yes.
schedule, so why don't you tell us why you picked it?
Sure. Well, I've realized over the past year or so that, like, a lot of my selections are kind of like a document of my childhood canon.
Yeah.
And some episodes are conversations I've been having with myself for many years, but, like, this case is an example of what can happen when you see a movie as a kid and then revisit it decades later. I saw this one many times from when we taped the censored version off of like TBS.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw the real version years later. I don't know how long it had been since I last saw it, but until I watched it for the show, I didn't realize that it's so different from what I remember. And even though my allegiances haven't changed, I gained a new perspective on certain aspects of it, which I'm sure everyone listening has as well when they've watched it as an adult.
Yeah. So what are some of those perspectives?
Well, I mean, I still think Vernon is an asshole, obviously.
Yeah, he's still being an abusive teacher, you know,
Yes.
abusing his position of power.
Yes. I really identified with Carl.
Yeah,
I
right.
think Carl's awesome.
Just the everyman who knows he runs the show.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I always thought he was a good character, and I liked him because you're supposed to. But like as an adult watching, I'm like, man, Carl's awesome. Like I am kind of Carl.
Carl's great because he walks in and he starts like giving the kids shit about how they think they're better than him, but he actually is the eyes and ears of this entire place and knows everyone's secrets.
Dude, exactly. And I mean, man, Carl is so cool, and I mean, John Kopelos gives a great performance. In a small character, he's only in like a handful of scenes, but he's really memorable in everything he does.
He's great. Then he bribes Vernon, or he blackmails him. You know, I'll keep quiet for $50, and then they're drinking old style together.
Yes,
it's
I
like,
know.
This guy has it going on.
I know, man. You could not have a movie set in Chicago without that beer, of course.
He's humiliating assholes. He's drinking on the job, and he's making $50.
Yes. And I mean, in the opening montage, Carl's picture is on the wall as Man of the Year.
Yeah.
I mean, either he has an untold backstory in which he was previously an educator and something happened, or Shermer High School awarded their most prestigious honor to the janitor. And I hope it's the latter because Carl is the smartest guy in the movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've said it earlier, I love John Kopelos, and he's like a John Hughes staple. He always comes through. In 16 Candles, he played Rudy, the groom that everybody refers to as the sweaty bohunk, which is apparently a slur of buffoonish men of Slavic descent, so that's really not good.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. John Hughes has a lot of slur use in his scripts.
Yeah, he does.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Has he gotten away from it? I think he did kind of in the 90s. He maybe started getting away from it.
Yeah, it probably
I don't know.
softened a bit. I mean,
Yeah.
he wasn't using the F slur quite as much. I mean, there wasn't any F slurs in Home Alone that I remember.
Thank God there wasn't. I
Right.
mean, that'd be a different movie for sure. Like Harry and Marv are running around, F, you're an F.
Oh, yeah.
I can't believe this.
It would never
I'm going
work.
to kill this F.
Right.
You know?
And that stuff did happen in kids' movies, so it wasn't like it was impossible.
Right, yeah. Holy shit. That would be, Home Alone would be, oh my God, I can't even imagine that.
It wouldn't be a Christmas tradition if it was like nonstop gay slurs.
I mean, someone might make it a tradition.
I mean, yeah, there are people in America who would. You're right.
I wouldn't.
Yes.
Well, let's get into this movie, Dave.
Yeah.
A very early John Hughes joint. I think he did 16 Candles before this, and
Yes, he did.
then this. Probably 6 months apart or something like that.
really
you know?
close together,
Yeah.
right? Because I remember hearing that, like reading the production notes, that like, Anthony Michael Hall was essentially he went from that set to this one. So did Molly Ringwald. I mean,
Yeah.
they were offered this part while making the other movie.
Yeah, and then Anthony Michael Hall basically went straight to Weird Science after this. And,
Yes.
I mean, I think then he's like, you know what, John Hughes, I need to do something else,
I know.
man.
Yes, he needs to diversify a bit, right?
Which I know he and Molly Ringwald felt the same way about that, and I think
Yeah.
it pissed off John Hughes. That's the story.
Really?
Like, he was mad that they left him high and dry. He wanted to make all these other, like, high school teen movies, like Ferris Bueller. Anthony Michael Hall was supposed to have the lead role in that, and he was like, no, dude, I need to do something else.
Well, yeah, he can't just play a teenager forever either.
Yeah.
And Molly would make another movie with him the next year, of course. I mean, Pretty in Pink is another famous role
Yes.
for her. So, yeah, I think they put their time in, John.
They did, yeah. Just let him go.
Right.
Let him flourish.
Yes.
Come on, man. I
Man.
think he got jaded, and he stopped writing teen movies after that.
Yeah, which makes
Yeah.
sense. I mean, Uncle Buck is not really a teen movie. It's
No.
more, it's about John Candy. And yeah.
Macaulay Culkin's in it.
Yes,
That's
he
how
is.
they
That's
discovered
right.
him.
That's true. Right.
Yep. Speaking
Right.
of Home Alone.
Yep. But yeah, the movie opens with like there's this card that appears before the opening narration, and it's a black screen containing lyrics from David Bowie's Changes, and it reads, "And these children that you spit on as they try to change their worlds are immune to your consultations. They're quite aware of what they're going through."
Whoo, baby.
Yes. And as you digest these words and their profound meaning and the promise of a better, more accepting world, there's this broken glass effect that destroys the words. And we cut to a photo of like brutalist architecture.
The high school.
Yes.
This big square prison.
That's right. Exactly.
Shermer High.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is where we're spending the rest of the day, everybody.
Right.
Saturday at Shermer High. And we hear the voiceover, and it's Anthony Michael Hall, right? Mm-hmm. And he's saying, we're supposed to write this essay about who we think we are. And he lists like the stereotypes of these people, of who they are. They're a brain, an athlete, a basket case, a princess, and a criminal.
Right.
That's the 5 people who are going to be here today.
The cross-section of teenagers.
Yes, these are all the different cliques that these people belong to. And they all show up at 7 a.m., and we see them all arriving. Claire is played by Molly Ringwald. She's the rich, popular girl, the princess.
Yes.
And you see her get dropped off in this BMW by her dad, and he's like, "Don't worry, everyone, gets in trouble cutting class for shopping. It's okay, I'll make it up to you." Like, he's like kissing her ass almost.
Yeah.
And we find out later, like, the dynamic at home from everyone. So it's kind of cool to see a setup at the beginning of everyone, how they arrive at school, whether it's with parents or without parents, and how the parents react to them. You get a good sense of how things are going to go with them.
Right. And I think that Claire's dad might be like the nicest parent out of all the 10 parents, I guess, even though he's still a jerk.
Probably, yeah. He's a jerk in a different kind of way.
Yes, he's kind of like, he reminded me of, I remember when we did our Less Than Zero episode many years ago, and Jamie Gertz's dad was kind of like this. He was very nice to her, to her face, and he like would give her money, and then that was the end of his duties.
Yeah. I've dadded today.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
She has everything she needs. She's got food and shelter.
Yep. Gave her $100 of love.
Yeah.
Yes. That's all that's needed.
That's right.
I'm done.
Right.
I'm gonna go do some cocaine or something.
Yeah, pretty much. Yes.
And we see Brian get dropped off. That's Anthony Michael Hall's character. He's the dork in the brain, they call him.
Right.
He's there, and his mom is like, you better study while you're here. And he's like, "Mom, we're not supposed to do anything." "Well, you better find a way to study." Played by his actual mom, by the way.
That's so great. Yeah, because I mean, like, it does feel like this conversation has happened, at some other point.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And then we see Andy show up, which is Emilio Estevez's character, and he's the wrestling team guy. He's the big jock at school, and his dad's like reaming him about how he's not going to get a free ride to college now because he's a troublemaker. And
right.
he's like, "Well, I caused trouble too, but I was never stupid enough to get caught." And he's kind of like putting him down. You know, he has high expectations for this kid, and he's humiliating him when he doesn't succeed.
You want to blow your ride?
Yeah, man.
Dude,
Blow your ride, man.
Listen, honestly, like when colleges offer scholarship to high school athletes, one Saturday detention is not going to deter them from bringing this guy on.
Yeah.
If they think that he can make money for their school by, playing a sport, they'll do what they can.
We all know that they don't care what you do,
Correct.
as long as you win.
That's right.
They'll pay you plenty. They might even help cover some things up.
You said it.
It happens.
No matter what you've done, that's right.
Doesn't matter how many bodies. It's fine.
Yep.
And then we also get, we see John Bender walking to the school. Mm-hmm. This is Judd Nelson's character, and he's the troublemaker of the group, the criminal, they called him.
Right.
And he just walks through the parking lot and almost gets hit by a car. He just doesn't give a shit.
Yep.
He's too cool. And then the car that almost hit him was Ali Sheedy's car. She plays Allison, the basket case. So, and she gets out of the car and she tries to look in the window to like say goodbye to her parents, and they just drive off without even acknowledging her. It's kind of heartbreaking to see that happen.
Of course.
I mean, at this point, we don't know the full dynamics, right? But it's maybe they're upset, like, I can't believe you're in detention. Bye, you know.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so she just left high and dry.
Right.
And then we see them all in the school library, and this is the setting for the rest of the movie.
Yes. And the whole thing with, like, Allison being dropped off there, I remember, did you ever have Saturday detention?
No, I've only had, like, after-school detentions.
Okay.
I never had a Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it is, yeah, it's a real depressing time, man. I mean,
Yeah.
like, not only do the kids not want to be there, the teacher running things is obviously unhappy having to do this on what's supposed to be their day off.
Yeah.
And, of course, some of the kids are discipline problems, and they tend to act up, so the teacher has to deal with that, too. And it's just a grim way to spend a Saturday.
Yeah.
And when Allison, I think when Allison gets dropped off, like that shot of her standing outside the car, not only like what you said about how she expected some acknowledgement from her parents and doesn't get it, but then she like turns around and sees the school and it's like, okay, well, this is the next 9 hours.
Yeah. Great. At school on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Not good.
Right.
So everyone's in the library in a seat, and Mr. Vernon walks in, everybody. He's the teacher who doesn't want to be here, right?
That's right.
Played by Paul Gleason. And he's excellent anytime he shows up, you know,
Man,
in a movie.
I love like the whole thing of like, you know, the bull and getting the horns, and he does the you know the devil sign to the children to give them the evil eye and all that stuff. And I mean, yeah, he is quite a character,
and he's not taking any shit from anyone.
That's right.
And we talked about teachers abusing their power and that kind of thing, and that's what he's doing here. You know,
Yeah.
he is in charge and he makes the calls.
Look, man, he makes $31,000 a year, and he's got a home, and he's not about to blow it all on some punk like you.
When he said that, I was like, man, I wish I lived in the 80s. I wish I could just go back to 84 when I was born and have a house on a modest salary and be content.
Oh my God. Yeah, imagine that.
God, I wish I was this man. I don't, but
Right.
yeah. So he's here, and he's gonna make them all write a 1,000-word essay about who they think they are.
My God, this is a real asshole move.
And of course, Brian is very into it because it's an assignment, and he likes to do school.
Yes.
So. But no one else is really into it, of course.
And with Brian, though, I don't understand. I mean, I know why he wants to do it. Like you said, he likes to do school. But, like, he can't use this anywhere in his transcript for, like, you know, getting into Northwestern or something. He can't, like, oh, by the way, when I was in Saturday detention, I wrote a really awesome essay.
That's true. I think just from what we know about the character that he's always got to do the best he can, no matter what.
He's an overachiever.
He has to impress his parents.
Yeah.
They don't love him if he doesn't do that.
Right.
So, of course, he wants to achieve greatness with anything that's given to him.
Yes.
So, Mr. Vernon, for some reason, leaves the room and just lets them do whatever. Right. I mean, you know there's going to be some horseplay going on.
I mean, yes, of course. And I don't care that he left that door open. I mean, like, you know, when I was in Saturday detention, we were never left unattended.
Right. There was always someone there.
Right.
Yeah, no monkey business was allowed. It was ill-advised.
Ill-advised.
That's what he says in the movie. It's ill-advised.
Right.
And while he's here, you get to see an interaction between him and John Bender. And he says, does anyone have any questions? And he goes, yeah, does Barry Manilow know you raid his wardrobe? So immediately we know, we already knew this guy's kind of a shithead, right?
Yeah.
Because he kicked Brian out of his chair.
Oh, man. Yeah, that was a real tough guy move.
Right, yeah. And he's got like his feet on the desk, and he's dressed like a criminal,
Oh,
you
of
know,
course.
quote unquote criminal. A bad kid.
Yes.
You know, he's got cool, like, early 80s metalhead clothing on. I'm like, God, this guy's got a cool wardrobe, man.
Yeah, and the fingerless gloves.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, he looks great. And, you know, and Judd Nelson, he looks like a brooding, bad kid teenager.
Yeah. The wardrobe did a great job with
Right.
it. Like, everyone here looks like the stereotype they're portraying.
Of course. Right.
So we know immediately he's the troublemaker, and he's going to instigate all kinds of events on this Saturday.
Right. And I think it might not be the first thing he does, but at one point, like after Vernon leaves the room, he decides, well, hey, listen, we can't have any fun with Vernon right outside there, so we need to take care of this. So he goes over to that door, the big industrial door it's got like the hydraulic closing mechanism, and he messes with it and takes some screws out of it. And so it closes, and you hear Vernon throwing a fit, and Bender sits back down, and it's one of my favorite things of like when Vernon comes out and he's trying to figure out a way to like get the door open. He takes this magazine rack and props it up against. Or first he takes a chair and props it up against, and the chair
it goes flying.
Exactly. Yes. And the kids all love it. They think it's funny, but they're not laughing as hard as they want to. And he eventually pulls this magazine rack over there, and he has Andrew, Emilio Estevez's character, come over and help him. And I love watching, because I think Emilio Estevez really does stumble.
It looks real, right?
Yes.
He tries to climb over this magazine rack, and like his foot like hits one of the magazines, so he slips and like falls on the rack.
Yes, because it's like his foot has no traction against the paper. Yeah. And then it doesn't work, and the door is closed, and he walks over, puts Andrew back in his seat, and says, I expect a little more from a varsity athlete.
Oh, come on, man.
God, this guy sucks.
Come on.
Right.
Yeah. What I do love about this scene is that they all saw John take these screws out of the door, right? And as soon as Vernon walks in, he's like, all right, who took the screws? Uh-huh. All right, tough guy, give me the screws. And everyone's like, what are you talking about? Screws fell out. Even like Claire and everyone's like, he didn't do anything.
Yeah,
they can defend him, actually.
I love Claire. We were just sitting here.
So good.
They all close ranks without even like making a plan beforehand.
I love how they all, we've already seen them here, like we skipped over a little bit, but he goes around the room kind of like posturing and like putting everyone down and putting them in their place and stuff, calling her like princess and all this, and making fun of Andy the jock and all this, and the brainy guy, the dork.
Right.
He's making fun of everyone. And then he takes the screws, and right after being insulted by this kid, they all kind of defend him because they're all in the same boat, and they don't want to be here and stuck here with this asshole in charge.
Right.
So they go along with it.
Yeah, because, I mean, like, I think that, like, as a kid, you all know that you have to band together because, like, this adult, I think by then you've understood that, like, adults will screw you over.
Yeah.
And so the only way to, like, prevent them from doing it is to don't say shit. Don't give them anything. I guess it's like prison culture, kind of, just say, hey, don't say anything about anything.
And I really like how quickly this happens, right?
Uh-huh.
There's no, like, big tension for many altercations and stuff. It kind of just, the first time it happens, they're all on John Bender's side.
Sure.
Like, they don't love this guy. They're just in the same boat, and they're not going to rat.
No, exactly. They don't dime, dude.
I immediately, at least for me, I expected Brian, Anthony Michael Hall's character, to immediately fess up.
I bet Vernon did too.
Yeah, probably. Because he's the goody two-shoe, right?
Of course.
Turns out he's not.
Yes, that's also part of it.
He's definitely not. He really wants to go get high.
Yeah,
which was a total surprise.
That's true, and I think though that like Brian also like recognizes in Vernon that like the psychology of Vernon, like I bet Vernon used to be like he either was a jock or he like wanted to be one, and he like kissed their ass because of the way he treats Brian. He seems to hate nerds.
Yeah.
At one point he says, "Shut up, Pee-wee." It's he's real dismissive of him. And like I think Brian recognizes that and is like, "No, okay, I'm not on this guy's side."
Right, yeah. Vernon probably got kicked out of the police academy.
Oh my God.
And then ended up a teacher.
Whew. That should never happen. There should be like provisions in place in society for that not to happen.
Yeah. So this guy's going to end up somewhere and it's going to be bad.
Because that definitely is what Vernon did.
It's got to be, right? You think he'd make $31,000 though?
Hey, I mean, not just anybody can make 31 grand in 1985.
Yeah, or have a house.
That's true.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's a great scene. We get to know like the kids a little more here because it's not what we expected them to do.
Right.
So Vernon is pissed off and he leaves the room and the door's closed. He doesn't just stay in the library.
I mean, there was like the librarian's nook right there, like right in front of the door. That was a perfectly good place for him to do his to push paper around. Just sit there the rest of the day, dude.
So like the way he's handling this situation, it seems like he really cares that they are doing nothing.
Yes.
And writing that paper. But it also seems like he doesn't give a shit because he locks himself in his own office to
I
not be
know.
bothered by them.
I know. Even after like later on when he puts Bender in that supply closet,
Yeah.
you'd think he would be checking in on him every 10 minutes. He doesn't.
He's gone for like most of the day. He's
Right.
locked in this closet.
And
That's
he's
right.
downstairs drinking Old Styles with Carl.
This guy sucks.
He
man.
does.
Yeah,
right.
he sucks, dude. So there's also, I think, is this the scene when he keeps giving him more and more detentions also?
Yeah, it's like around that time, because like they go on this thing where like, Bender starts mouthing off and, Vernon threatens, okay, well, that's going to cost you another Saturday. He'd gotten one earlier, but then the Barry Manilow remark.
Yeah.
But like now he's like piling it on. And it's a great moment for Bender because like the way Judd Nelson does this one part where it reminded me so much of like a dumb kid, what a dumb kid would do.
Yeah.
Which is he goes, are you through? He goes, no. He goes,
Yeah.
I'm going to give you more. So.
Yeah.
And like, dude, he's not going to relent. You've got to just shut up now.
Judd Nelson's performance in this movie is one for the ages. Like, I love this character,
Yeah.
the way he handles it. And I don't know if he gets enough credit for this performance. He probably does. Everyone knows it's a great performance,
Yeah, I mean,
right?
it's probably his most famous role.
But like I just love it so much. It's so layered and dense because he's being defiant just because he wants to, right?
Yeah.
But you can tell as it goes on and on, he gets up to like 8 detentions. And as it goes on and he keeps talking back to get more, you can tell every time it happens, it hurts him a little more.
Yeah.
Like he actually doesn't want all this shit happening to him, but he can't help himself.
yeah, and when Claire tells him to cut it out, he like looks over at her and I think he wants to cut it out, but he can't like show weakness in
He
front
looks
of
almost
everybody.
scared at times
Yeah,
too, like
right.
an actual frightened kid.
Because that's what he is.
Yeah.
And despite all of his affectations and like tough guy veneer, I mean, he in the end is a frightened child, and we see that later in the altercation he almost has with Vernon.
Yeah, definitely. In the closet?
Right.
Yeah. And Vernon even says here, like, stop trying to impress people, just worry about yourself,
Yes.
you know? It's great because that's pretty much what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
He wants people to pay attention to him.
And that's one insight that Vernon has into him is that like he knows that like Bender is showing off for the other kids.
Yeah.
And I wish that he would be the bigger person and realize that and just pull him aside and say, okay, look, John, here's what's going down. Not give him 8 detentions and pile it on.
Right.
And then like, I'm pretty sure Brian had it right with the tally, but Vernon's not going to go with that 7 number.
Right. Brian keeps correcting him. He's like, well, sir, it's actually... And he's like, shut up. Is that what he says? Shut up,
He
Pee-wee?
says, shut up, Pee-wee.
Yeah, dude.
Yep.
It's pretty good.
Right.
So he leaves, and man, Judd Nelson... I like get so upset when I watch this movie.
Yeah.
My heart breaks watching this movie every time
Okay.
I watch it.
Right.
I get like tears in my eye. I mean, it's a very emotional movie, right? Like this is like therapy in the library. It's not
Yeah.
detention.
I know, and that was one thing that made me like envious of these people in this detention setting, because in mine it was all just like everybody's sitting there looking at the floor. I never had to like have this heart to heart with Ali Sheedy about like all my issues.
Right. Everyone's getting high and talking about the meaning of life.
Can you imagine? I mean, that actually sounds like a pretty good day. It was almost like being at Denny's.
It's a great Saturday.
right.
We need to get to Shermer, man. That's where we need to go.
That's true, dude.
But yeah, a great scene from him, and then we get a montage of them all being bored and time's passing. You know, I mean, of course, you'd be bored out of your skull, like you
Yeah.
said, just staring at the floor.
Right. And that's the weird part of it is that like the schedule of the movie. I mean, I guess for the first 2 hours they actually don't do anything. They get there and they sit there until 10 o'clock when Vernon comes in and asks them, who needs to use the bathroom.
Yeah,
And then from there they actually start interacting. And I think the first time we see them actually doing stuff, like Andy is stretching his legs. He's doing like a quad stretch. And Bender is sitting on top of like the railing there, like ripping out pages of Moliere.
Yeah.
And it's, man, I can't help. I am such a mark for Anthony Michael Hall in this movie.
Yeah.
I love everything he says is so funny. And when he, when Bender like mispronounces the name, this Mole really blows my mind. And like Claire goes, Moliere. And Brian goes, I love his work.
I know, right? He's so good.
Man, it's just the best.
Yeah.
And like his rant too about the clubs he's in, that's his funniest moment. Anthony Michael
Yeah.
Hall. It's expertly written, and his cadence with the stops and starts and tripping over certain words, it's so good. I mean, I was just saying that I'm in the math club and the Latin club and the physics club.
Well, what do you do in physics club?
We talk about physics and properties of physics.
It's so good. I mean, one thing I love about all the characters in the film is how honest they are.
Right.
Like, there are some scenes when they aren't being honest, or they're trying to hide some information from other people because they don't want them to know it.
Yeah.
But really, I'd say 98% of the time, they are not holding back. They just say how they're feeling. And as a kid in high school, that's not what you do.
Mm-hmm.
To be truly yourself and open, especially to 4 other people from 4 other parts of the world, of the
Right.
high school world,
Right, yes.
that's very daring. And I love how they do that. I mean, if they didn't do that, we wouldn't have much of a movie, right?
Well, yeah.
So
If it was 5 guarded weirdos, yeah.
that would make a good title, though. 5 guarded weirdos. Yeah. But I do love that. And here, he's just so open about his clubs, right? And
Right.
you know, as a dork, I was a dork for a long time, Dave. Still kind of am.
Sure.
But I wouldn't go touting that around.
No,
I wouldn't be proud of that, actually, which is kind of sad.
And well, it is sad because he should be proud of it. They're
Yeah.
very. I mean, I wish I was as much of an achiever as Brian clearly is. I mean, he's
Yeah.
in the Latin club. I mean, so he knows a dead language on top of everything else. And then and when he gets into it, like when I guess not recognizing that like Bender is kind of making fun of him that makes him less self-aware.
Right, yeah.
But like. Because when he starts talking about like Bender's like, well, what do you guys do in the club? And we go to this big party at the Hilton at the end of the year. It's like he's describing the end of the year physics club gala.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, and he doesn't know that Bender is like doesn't think this
Right,
is cool.
yeah.
And he starts talking about like he says, and my cousin Kendall. It's another just great Anthony Michael Hall
Yeah.
moment talking about like how the guy got high once and he started eating weird foods and.
Yeah, he's just so oblivious to it,
Right.
which is great. It's endearing.
Yeah, it is very much so.
And
Like, he's a great kid.
Everyone's there just kind of watching this, like, Brian,
Yes,
come on, man. Don't you realize what's happening? But Bender does this to everybody,
He
right?
does.
Like he really tears into Claire at one point.
Yeah.
Gets really into things with her, talking about how she's so perfect and everything, and she has everything she's ever wanted. And if she didn't come to school tomorrow, the world would end. The school would shut down. She's Little Miss Perfect.
Oh, that later
Yeah.
thing where he's just like incredibly hostile toward
Yeah.
her, yes. And in this moment after the thing with Brian, he gets really like sexually aggressive with Claire and
Yeah.
like starts whispering to her like in front of the other kids about about her virginity, and he starts getting into sexy talk about like
Yeah.
Calvin's in a ball on the front seat past 11 on a school night,
Mm-hmm.
and over the bra stuff and hands in the underwear, and it's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
You're waiting for Andy to finally say something, and finally he does.
Thank God he does.
Yes.
And I mean, Molly Ringwald is great here too. Like her face is just, you can see the anger just boiling up in her face.
Right.
And she's almost a little embarrassed too, because she doesn't want to talk about sex with this guy. Of course you won't. I mean,
Yeah.
and this is private information, whether I'm a virgin or not. I don't need to discuss this with you, and you need to shut the fuck up.
And this is not the time or place
Yeah.
for any of it. And yeah, I'm like, it's lewd conversation on top of that, and it's in front of other people.
Right.
And I mean, yeah, she's embarrassed. She's also scared. She's also like aware that he's coming on to her in some way, and
Yeah.
I mean in a very big way, obviously.
Yeah.
And yeah, it eventually it is stopped when Andrew steps in and tells him to shut up.
Yeah, he gets up, and he does it several times throughout the whole film. I
He
love
does.
it, man.
I
He
know.
is a righteous dude for real, man.
That's true, right?
I love it. He gets up. He's like, "I'd kill you." Like, I love everything he says. He like tells him to stop. He's gonna waste him. Like, I'm like, dude, this is the greatest language.
If we weren't in school right now, I'd waste you.
It's so good.
And then, when he tells him, he says, how many of your friends? Just me, 2 hits. Me hitting you, you hitting the floor. Anytime you're ready, pal.
Yeah.
And then he puts him in a double chicken wing, which is
Yes.
like a great move, although it's not a move that you'd execute while standing up normally in a wrestling match, which is fine. It's usually a pinning combination with a half Nelson
Right.
combination. But, still, it does the job.
Well, because he like gives him this little backhanded slap on his face.
Right.
You know, Bender hits him in the face, and then immediately like grabs his arm, twists him, and puts him in the chicken wings, dude.
Right.
And he's down on the floor.
Yeah.
And then he lets him up. It's great, man. Emilio, I love him in this.
I do too.
He's so good. He gets up and he's like, "Yeah, fuck you," you know.
Right.
And Bender gets up and he's like, "I'm not gonna do anything, you know. I'd kill you." And he pulls out his switchblade knife that he has. Too.
Yes.
Like, yeah. So maybe he would hurt him for real.
It's possible. He does carry a switchblade around. We don't know. He doesn't have any confirmed kills that we know of.
We haven't seen any violence from him,
Right.
Like true violence. He did kind of backhand slap Andy, but that's because they're posturing their manliness in front of
Yes.
each other.
Right.
That's what that is.
Yeah, if it's just a regular physical fight, I mean, we could do a tale of the tape all night, I'm pretty sure, but I would, my money would be on Andy because he would.
Oh yeah, I mean he's varsity all-state, wrestling
right.
champ.
Right, he would do
Bender's
some
going
grappling.
down.
Right.
Now if there's a knife involved, maybe not.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And I like too when Bender puts the switchblade into the chair, as like a final, like an exclamation point on how bad he is.
Stabs it in.
You see, like, from the right of the frame, Allison's hands come in and take the blade.
Yep.
And-
Real quick.
Yeah, I mean, like, no acknowledgement is made of it. She just stole that switchblade.
Yeah, and while all this is happening, she's kind of just sitting there. She doesn't say much throughout the whole film, really.
Right.
I mean, it's probably like 30 minutes before she even has a line.
Well, I guess
right?
in all these other interactions, it was right before, like, Bender started in on Claire about sex stuff. She was going on, because, like, Andy had invited her to this like, jock party.
Oh, yeah, Stubby's?
At Stubby's, right. And it's going to be pretty wild. And she told him, she starts explaining about, like, all this stuff with her dad, how her parents, like, are always at each other's throats, and they put me in the middle of it. And, my mom's mad, but my dad told her just to blow her off. And, and that's when Allison goes, ha! You know, and very dramatically. And it's a great, like, on the soundtrack, like, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's like a synth score.
It's really good.
Yeah.
She says they use me to get back at each other.
Right.
Which is part of her home life, we finally found out,
Yeah.
And, we find out everyone throughout the film has their problems at home.
Yeah.
As we all do, right?
Of course.
And that's the great thing about the movie. By the end of it, they all realize they're not all that different.
Right. And when Allison, like, mocked Claire, it was how she felt in the moment, which is fine. But, like, unexpectedly, when Claire tells her to shut up, Andy comes to Allison's defense and says, "Oh, you were just feeling sorry for yourself."
Yeah.
And and then Bender, like, defends Claire, which is it's goes back and forth like this whole dynamic throughout the day.
Yeah, and I think, like, other people open up about their parents here a little bit, too.
Yeah.
Like, I think Brian admits, like, he has the same issue with his parents, and John's like, well, your parents' wet dream. Like,
Yes.
what problems can you have, you
Right.
know? And he reveals a little bit about that, like, that is the problem. They expect me to be perfect the entire time.
And he doesn't quite, like, get into it like he does later, but I
Right.
mean, he's essentially saying, once he explains fully, why this is a problem, then we understand it more. But in that moment, he only says a couple of things, just like, being a perfect kid has its own issues.
Yeah. Everyone has issues, right?
Yeah.
Everyone has them. They may manifest differently, but we all have them, and we can all relate on them.
Right.
So I think it's at this point when janitor Carl shows up, finally.
Yes.
We get his appearance.
Right. Yeah, he walks in and he's got like a...
Hey, Brian.
Oh, my God. That was always the... And just for Bender to, like, make the obvious joke, your dad works here?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're putting down the janitor for being a janitor, which is a real asshole move.
Yeah.
Then you're like, shitting on Brian for knowing the janitor. Well, who cares if he knows the janitor, John?
Yeah, right?
Fuck off.
You should know him, too.
That's right. He's a great guy. He'd give you an old style.
Yeah, dude. I'm sure he would. For $50. I'll buy you beer. That's right. Yeah, and he starts, like, railing into Carl here, a little bit. John Bender does, like, kind of the same thing he's doing to everyone in the room. He starts talking to Carl and then belittling him. Like, hey, how do you get into the custodial arts, things like that. And Carl's not having it. Immediately, he's like, you think I'm beneath you, don't you? Just because I do this, that you're better than me. And then that's when he reveals, no, I'm the fucking eyes and ears of this joint.
That's
Fuck
right.
you guys. You suck, you know? Pretty good.
And this is probably like the one time he's able to like fire back at asshole kids because it's not like a school day.
Yeah.
If this happens out in the quad and there's, 1,000 of them hanging around, he probably just has to like, eat it.
Yeah, he probably loves Saturdays because he
Yeah,
can come in here and say something to people.
That's true.
Yeah.
Right?
And I read that he knows Brian, not because they're friends, but because of, I think it might be a little cut scene or something, but he was the person who found the flare gun in his locker.
Oh, okay.
Something like that.
Okay.
So like he like turned him in or something, ratted him out.
Well, I think
know.
maybe, I don't think it was probably like a ratting. I think he probably like maybe even showed concern.
Probably, and that's why he's the man of the year.
Exactly. that could be it. That could be the motivation for his win was saving Brian's life.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was.
Right.
But yeah, Carl's still the best. And then where do we go from here? We get lunchtime coming up sometime, right?
Yes. They're given some time for half an hour for lunch, and it's another cool moment where like Bender wants to go get like sodas for everybody, and Vernon's like, no, you're not going. You're not going down these halls by yourself.
Yep.
And he has Andy and Allison go.
Yeah, they have to go to the teacher's lounge to get like some Cokes.
Yes.
Yeah, and they walk down there and they have like a small interaction here. He asks her what she drinks and she says vodka. Uh-huh. And that's about it.
Right.
And they ask each other why they're there and they don't really answer the question.
Yeah, like it's a weird thing that happens in detention. Everybody always wants to know what you did to get in there.
Yeah, I mean if you're in the joint, you got to tell.
Pretty much.
Right?
Yes. And just like the joint, your credibility depends on how awesome or extreme your offense was.
I cut class to go shopping. That's not going to do it, Claire.
That's right.
You don't belong here. This
No.
is maximum security.
That's right.
You need to tape someone's butthole closed and rip their flesh out. That's what you need to do.
I mean, Jesus, I still
God,
can't believe
that scene, man, when Emilio tells that story, it's so heartbreaking.
That's
so
one of the times
gut-wrenching.
when I tear up a little bit.
Me
just
too.
from his
I just can't
performance,
believe
yeah.
it. The performance and the way the camera moves. I
know.
mean, we'll talk about it when we get there, but
Yeah.
good Lord, man, this movie really hits hard.
Right.
And it does it amazingly well.
But in this moment, he doesn't want to reveal that.
Yeah.
And he like tells. He goes on this thing to Allison about some bullshit thing about, well, my coach and my dad don't want me to blow my ride. You see, I'm a winner because I got strength and speed. It's a nothing answer.
Yeah.
He's not revealing anything about like why he'd be in here.
Yeah.
Like, oh, so you're an athlete and they put you in Saturday detention because why?
Right, yeah, like he says he has all those things, like that's why I'm a winner, not because I want to be, but because I am. Mm-hmm. Something like that.
Right.
It's like, okay, so, I mean, no one's answering that question right now.
Right.
So no one wants to reveal it.
And the patch on his jacket, he has a Letterman's jacket, and it says state champion. Now, if you're a state champion wrestler, like that is about as like grueling mentally and physically as sports can get.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, he would be a scholarship athlete probably, but like I still don't understand what he thought he was doing, saying that they're putting me in Saturday detention because of that in order to like keep me like grounded. I don't know.
Maybe he was building up towards his revealing what happened, because later
Yeah.
when he reveals it, the pressure from being that
Yeah.
is what caused him to do what got him in detention.
True. Right.
So I guess he was getting there in his own way.
Yeah,
maybe.
you're right. Okay, no, you're right. Actually, that's fair.
But it doesn't really come off that way. Unless you've seen the movie before. You can kind of see, like, well, you know what happened and you know his whole story already.
Right.
But yeah, no one tells anybody anything.
And he wasn't I guess he wasn't prepared for Allison to go, oh, yeah? Well, that's real interesting.
Yeah, because she hasn't even talked this whole day, right? And so, like, all of a sudden, she's asking him very personal things.
Yes.
Out of nowhere.
The only thing she said all day was, ha? And then we saw her make her, like, fun dandruff winter's covered bridge scene.
Oh, man. I heard they used Parmesan cheese for the dandruff.
Up they didn't have to put it in her hair.
They might have. I don't know. But
Jesus. I mean, that would be worse than dandruff as far as the stench.
I love Parmesan cheese, but I'm not going to put it in my locks,
no
man.
way, dude. I mean, I'd rather my drawing smelled like scalp than old cheese.
But it's delicious, man.
I mean, it is great.
Parmesan tastes better than dandruff, I'll tell you that much.
You're right.
But yeah, we do have lunch, and Claire has some sushi, man. It looks great.
Oh, man, she brings out this little bento box
I
in
know,
1985. Man. I mean, I bet she lives in the same neighborhood as like Cameron.
Oh, she's got to, right?
Yeah.
I mean, apparently this is the same high school, the same
right,
universe.
That's true. Yeah, you're right.
So yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure there's a whole chart on the internet that explains everyone's relationship to each other in the John Hughes-averse.
I am positive it's there, yes.
But yeah, in 1985, sushi was like a joke, right?
Yes.
Like that was the joke. Oh, you're eating sushi.
Of course.
Yeah.
It is in this movie even. Like Bender looks at it and she's like, "Oh, well, it's rice and seaweed and raw fish." And he's just both him and all the other kids are just like, "Oh, they're ready to vomit."
Disgusted.
Right.
Yeah. Even Seinfeld was doing sushi
I
jokes
know.
in the 90s.
It's so dumb. I mean, like everybody, we all know how delicious sushi is.
It's amazing.
Right. And back then, I mean, people were just mistrustful, I guess, of Japanese culture. That's part of it.
Well, John Hughes wasn't the biggest advocate of Chinese or Japanese cultures
in
his movies.
Yeah, his race relations were a little questionable. Yeah.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
But the food looked great.
Yes.
My favorite is Andy has this big sack from a grocery store, and
Right.
it has like 5 or 6 turkey sandwiches just piled high with meat. He's got to get his protein, you know? Like
Yeah.
he's got a banana, he's got a whole carton of milk. Like this he's a growing boy, man.
Right. There's like a whole like bag of the soft batch cookies.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, like that's the weird thing too, is that like when you wrestle and you have to make weight, in between meets, you would do this.
Yeah.
You know, because like you had to starve yourself in order to get on that scale and, you know, hit 119 or whatever. And no, okay, I've now weighed in, well, and I wrestled. Now it's time for me to just do what Andy does in this scene.
Yep. Time to bulk up, man.
Exactly.
Like,
yes.
so many sandwiches.
Right.
And Allison makes herself a Captain Crunch and Pixie Stick on white bread. It is the most disgusting food. Give me the sushi, man. Everyone looks at her too like she's crazy.
Oh yeah, of course.
Like, which really, that is a crazy sandwich. I would not want to eat this.
No, the only thing close that I've seen to it is like what Jodie Foster eats in Taxi Driver. You know, which is like, I mean, are they saying that like Allison is a junkie? I mean, you know, is that part of what this is?
Maybe the sugar interacts with the heroin or something. I don't know.
Yeah, this is like, you know, she does this instead of shooting up.
Hey, it's better than shooting up heroin. I'll tell you that.
Yes,
much.
very much so.
And then Brian's got a nice, balanced, wholesome, you know, mom made my PB&J meal.
Yes.
Of course, Bender has to give him all kinds of shit about it.
Yes, and Bender is also going to, like, you know, essentially share his lunch without asking.
Brian's going to share his lunch with me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. He sits down next to him and bullies him into giving him some lunch.
And he starts teasing him. He's about, like, his family life being so perfect. He stands up and gives this performance in front of everyone, like, "Oh, hey, son. Oh, hi, Dad. How you doing? Swell." You know, and he gives this whole thing about how perfect everything is.
Yes, he does about 5 minutes of character work here. You know? And,
Yeah. And then Andy is pissed off about it because I love Andy. He's, like, standing up for everybody.
Right.
That's great, right? But he's like, "Oh, yeah, man. Like, well, how about you?" And then he's like, "Oh, yeah, that's easy." Then he does more character work of his own home life.
Yes.
And it is just tragic what he does, man.
Right. This particular sketch that he comes up with is like an interaction between him and his dad, and then his mom tries to, like, intervene, and she gets hit too. And,
yeah. Stupid, worthless, no good, freeloading. Yeah,
Yep.
just, man, and it is, it's kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is, especially then when Andy doesn't believe it, and Bender walks over and shows him this, like, mark on his forearm, says, "See this? About the size of a cigar.
Yeah.
This is what you get in my house when you spill paint in the garage."
Whew, man. This kind of pushes him over the edge. He gets, like, really upset.
Right.
He doesn't, like, fight him or anything. He runs off. He runs and he, like, scales the staircase from the outside.
Yeah.
And, like, sits on the balcony with his legs, like, hanging out of the railing, and he just looks totally dejected. Like, he's in his own mind, like, about to crack, about to cry, thinking about his relationship with his mom and dad.
Yes. Yeah, it is really heartbreaking for a kid to have to go through that, especially knowing that he's acting out at school like this because of what's happening at home.
Mm-hmm.
And after this detention is over, he has to go home and endure some more of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, but obviously, what a feat of strength by Judd Nelson.
I know, right? He just like King Kongs up the staircase.
It's kind of jaw dropping because he does a full chin up, to get up over that railing, and then like uses his legs to propel back over it.
I used to be able to do that kind of shit.
Sure.
I looked like Anthony Michael Hall doing it though. Minus a couple feet. I was a small man.
Sure, right.
If you want to call me a man back then. But yes.
Yeah.
I'm not very tall, everybody.
Right.
But
right.
yeah. I was very I don't know. What do you? I could climb.
Yeah, you had
I had
you
the
were
ability to
wiry, and
climb.
yeah, of course, yeah. I remember you say you like executed a successful kip up one time.
Oh yeah, I used to
Yeah.
do it all the time.
Right.
Like I can't do it anymore now. I like
Of
break a
course.
rib when I do it.
Yeah, I mean we all would. Yes,
I like pull like a hip out of place.
I shudder
Yeah.
to think what would happen if I attempted that.
After
right now.
we record right now, we're gonna try to do kip ups.
I mean-
and we'll put it on Instagram. Everybody, there you go.
right in my work clothes.
Yeah. Jesus. No, I lie. We're not doing that.
Right.
All right. So, what happens next?
Well, yeah. So it's after lunch, and
Yeah.
like the next thing we see is they're going into. They're now in the hall.
Oh yeah, they sneak out of the room.
Right.
Right. They all sneak out together.
Right.
Which is great because they're following John Bender somewhere.
Yeah.
And they're like, why are we sneaking out?
Yeah. Brian just full on asks Andy, like, "What are we doing? I don't
Why are
understand
we,
this.
why
This
are we
is so
risking
dangerous."
being caught? And then
Right.
I think John or someone says, feels pretty good to be bad.
Yeah, he says that to Claire.
Yeah.
And then when they go to Andy and Brian, like Brian is like just essentially just asking a good question, logical questions. We are totally going to get,
Yeah,
like
why are
busted
we
for
doing
him.
this?
Right. And then Andy goes, "If you say one more word, I'm beating the shit out of you."
He's a very angry person.
Yes,
He defends the weak and helpless, but
Yeah,
he's
right.
also quite violent.
Exactly. And at some point he has had it with Brian's questions, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, what can I, as a state champion wrestler, do to get him to shut up? Well, I'll just threaten him.
Yep. And they ultimately end up at Bender's locker, and he goes in, and it's a total mess. He even has a guillotine set up in there.
Which is, I mean, and it's a working guillotine.
Yeah, I don't know how sharp it is, but it looks like it could cut a finger off.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
it comes down with some force, and I think the first F slur we had in the movie was his locker, the graffiti outside of his locker.
Yeah, I think it was there.
Yeah, it's like to open this door and die, F slur.
Yeah.
Great.
There's a couple other ones thrown around in the movie,
Uh-huh.
but they don't sit on them for too long, thankfully. But they open this locker, and he digs out this bag, a big brown grocery bag. He unrolls it, and there's another bag in there. He unrolls that bag. And what did you know? He's got a little baggie full of marijuana.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's marijuana.
I love Brian's reaction. Marijuana. And he's just like got his hands on his hips. He's not having this.
But not for long, I'll tell you that much.
You're right. He turns pretty quickly.
Yeah. So now we get a montage of them running through the halls while Vernon is like just casually strolling, and like they keep like winding up in his trajectory somehow.
I don't understand the logistics of why they keep running into him and why he keeps turning corners.
It's some old like Laurel and Hardy,
It is.
running through the doors type
Yes,
thing.
Right.
But there's some cool 80s song playing, right? It's not the theme song, of course, which we
Right.
didn't even talk about.
Yeah, I know. How
but
did we not mention Simple Minds?
I don't know, man.
I mean, yeah,
but
it's yes.
we forgot about them. That's what we did.
I don't know. Oh my God. Wow. Okay. Yes. Jesus. I can't believe we did that. Yes.
But great song. Don't You Forget About Me, everybody. Written for the movie, and became a huge #1 hit.
Yes. Rightly so, because like whenever you hear that song, there is something you think of.
Yeah, I think of this movie.
Yes.
You have to, right?
Right.
Apparently, they did not want to write this song. They did it as a favor to someone's girlfriend who was like in the production or some shit, and they just recorded it in like 3 hours. And you know the verse at the end where it's like la 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 la, all the las, the la las. He just didn't want to write lyrics, so he just la'd the whole song, and it became iconic.
Okay, whenever I hear stories like that of people accidentally becoming like really successful and massive, international stardom, I get real pissed off. I can't take it.
Well, how come?
Because here we are knocking ourselves out all the time, like trying to be as insightful as we can talking about movies and doing a good job on our podcast.
Yeah.
And that asshole with the curly hair from Simple
just
Minds
phones it in.
Exactly.
Doesn't give a shit about it.
Right.
Yeah.
God damn it. Okay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that sucks, right? Because the intent behind it was so wrong.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, I'm going to put my heart and soul into some music and do what I love and what's important.
Right.
No, I'm just going to do this and shit all over it and write a #1 hit that everyone remembers 50 years in the future.
It sucks, man, because I remember hearing this, like a similar story about Quiet Riot when they did Come On Feel the Noise.
Yeah.
It was a cover of the Sweets' original song from the 70s, and they didn't want to do it. The studio was making them do it, so they deliberately like tanked it and like were as shitty as they could be, and it turns into like the album goes to #1.
And now they have to close every concert with that song.
Right.
That sucks. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad I don't write music because
Right.
I have written music. It's not very good, but
Yeah.
I mean, I would hate to have to play something I loathed.
Well, I
every
wouldn't
day.
want to either, but it's just I think that like if that did happen to me, I'd tell the story, but I would still kind of like be thankful and grateful for what happened,
Right. Yeah.
accidentally.
Right. Yeah. True. You have to at least be grateful for
Yeah.
it, right? Like I know John Mayer hates Your Body is a Wonderland.
Okay.
He hates that song. He stopped playing it at concerts after a while because he's like, fucking hate this song. I'm not playing it anymore.
Okay.
It's what broke me into the big time, and I
Right.
hate this.
Wow.
Fortunately, he's an extremely talented musician and writes many good songs
That's
and
true,
doesn't
yes.
need to play that crap.
That's right. And it is crap.
Although the end of the song has this amazing outro where he's just kind of noodling on the guitar
Yeah.
and these weird like scales and voicings. It's like, how is that in the song? It's just like a secret ending to this song that sucks.
Well, yeah, right. Because that's one thing he prides himself on is his guitar work.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he probably put that in because he knew that the lyrical content of this song, where he pronounces the word body in a strange way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus. All right, let's get back to the Breakfast
Back
Club.
to the
dude.
Breakfast
Let's go
Club.
to the 80s again, please.
Yes.
All right, so there's a montage of them running around the school avoiding Mr. Vernon.
Right.
And they're cornered, and
Yes.
and John Bender decides, you know what? We're not in trouble. I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Get back to the library. And then he runs off and sacrifices himself.
And he puts the weed in Brian's underpants before he runs away.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he ends up screaming, running down the halls, drawing his attention.
Right.
He's shooting hoops in the gymnasium.
Yes.
And Vernon walks in. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, well, I think I'm going to try out for varsity or something like that.
He says, it's one of my favorite Judd Nelson lines. He goes, thinking about going for a scholarship. He does this little move.
That's
with
right.
his-
Yeah.
with his
Oh,
hand.
yeah.
And I don't know if this is a 9-foot rim or what, but like Judd Nelson can dunk, apparently.
Yeah. He should
okay.
go for that scholarship.
If he can dunk, yes.
Yeah. His shoe fell off, though.
Well, that's the weird thing. He's got shoes underneath his shoes. He's wearing the harness boots, but he's got like one basketball shoe underneath the
They're
other one.
Jordans, man.
I don't know what he's doing. Well, he's wearing 2 pairs of shoes.
I guess it's the 80s. But yeah, so he gets dragged back, from the gymnasium into the room, he's and this is where they bring him back into the library, or do they throw him in the closet here? I think he goes back to the library.
They bring him into the library to get the rest of his stuff because his overcoat was in
Okay.
there. And he comes in and he's acting like he's doing like a perp walk.
Yeah.
And, Vernon pushes him. And that's when he really gets personal, like in front of the other kids. Like Bender mouths off again and Andy thinks it's funny. And Vernon goes, oh, what? You think he's funny? You think he's bitching? Yeah, I'll tell you what's going to be funny. Go visit John Bender in 10 years and you'll see how funny he is.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it gets really, obviously, very personal.
Yeah, he does some very harsh things, saying like, he's not important.
Right.
Like if he was gone, no one would even care. Stuff like that.
And then when he gets in John's face, he goes, what's the matter, John? You're going to cry now? And then like Bender, like full on tells him, hey, shut, get your hand out of my face or everything. And that's when he takes him to the closet. And that's when he starts threatening him.
Yeah, this is like real threats.
Yes.
This also when he mentions his salary and his home ownership status for some reason. But he's trying to humiliate him, saying like, hey, I'm successful,
right, and
you're never going to be.
Right.
He says, I'm going to kick your dick in the dirt, which is a great insult. I fucking love that threat, dude. And he's like, oh, well, you think anyone's going to believe you over me? You know, I'll fucking kill you.
Right.
I keep saying that, like, I'll fucking kill you. I keep saying everyone says that in this movie. Someone says it at some point.
I'm trying to think of it. Yeah. Does the line actually... I mean,
Bender might say it to Andy, or Andy might say it to Bender. I don't know if Vernon says it, but Vernon might as well be saying that. Like, I'm going to really hurt you,
right,
is what he's saying
I mean,
to him.
knocking his dick in the dirt is a pretty vicious threat.
Yes.
And then also, like, when he just essentially... He takes his jacket off fully and just challenges him to a physical fight, and like Bender is not ready for this.
He's kind of thrown into this closet and he's sitting on like an extra desk, kind of leaning against the supply cabinet.
Yes.
And he's like almost in a helpless cornered position.
Yeah.
While Vernon's standing there in front of, between him and the door, kind of just like with his chest puffed out, kind of in his face.
Right.
And he sits there back on that shelf, kind of defensive, and you can see the fear in his face.
And that's what I love about Judd Nelson's performance, is that like a lot of people who were given the role of John Bender, you know, the good-looking rebel who plays by his own rules, like, you know, Jimbo Jones.
Yeah.
He could have been defiant throughout the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And instead, he lets this guy be a kid, a 17-year-old who is being threatened by an adult physically like this.
Right.
You know, there's a good chance that kid is not going to be able to hold their own in a fight. Yeah. And all you want in that moment when an adult is threatening you is to get, you know, you want them to back off and you become a child. Mm-hmm. No matter what your size. I mean, like, he is comparable physically to Vernon, but Vernon is a grown man who has probably been in some fights before.
Yeah. And we talked about this on Stand By Me, right? Like, when an adult you trust turns on you.
Yes, lets you down.
It's one of the harshest things that can happen to you. One of the hardest life lessons to ever experience. And of course, he's felt this at home from his parents already. But this is a teacher who's supposed to not be doing this to you.
Because, I mean, like, an abused kid goes to school, and that should be some kind of safe haven and refuge for them.
Well, think why is he in detention all the time? He doesn't want to be at home.
Right.
That's for sure. Maybe he feels safer here.
That's right.
I mean, he could just leave and go other places, but maybe there's something to it. He feels safe in this environment for some reason, even if he can't admit it. Like, maybe that's subconsciously why he's doing all these things to end up here.
Right.
And yeah, Mr. Vernon is being a horrible, horrible teacher.
Yeah.
A horrible educator, a horrible adult, horrible human being.
I mean, yeah. Because, you know, you are, as an educator, it is up to you not only to teach the students, but also to be there for them in every possible way.
Right.
And when you have a kid that's obviously been abused at home, I mean, you as the teacher, it's on you to alert the authorities, alert the rest of like the leadership at school, like do everything you can to like make sure that this kid is taken care of while they're at school at least, you know?
Right. This guy needs to be fired.
I mean, yes.
If this gets out, he's done.
And like, even apart from this threat to John Bender, I mean, he should have been fired for all the other shit he's been up to this Saturday.
Yeah.
Like drinking beer on school grounds, that's a firing.
Yeah.
Going through the personnel files that you're not supposed to be looking through, that's a firing.
Yep. He was blocking that doorway, which is a fire hazard.
That's right. That's a firing.
Yeah. This guy sucks.
Yeah.
They try to give him a little bit of sympathy later.
Right.
Which you do get a tiny bit of it, but it's not enough to redeem the guy, you know?
Well, and I think we can just talk about it right now before we get back to the kids, because it's like kind of the end of Vernon's on-screen time is when he's down in the basement looking through confidential files. Carl catches him, asks him for a bribe, money to keep his mouth shut, and it ends up being like them spending the afternoon like just talking about life.
Yeah.
And yeah, he tells Carl, this crop of kids, man, this is something different. You know, they turned on me. And Carl tries to tell him, hey, man, think about when you were your age. What would you think of you right now?
Yeah, man. Turns it on him.
Right.
He says, man, the kids haven't changed. You have.
You have.
I've been teaching for 22 years, and the kids keep getting worse and worse. And then he's like worried, like, I'm getting older, and they're going to end up running the country and having to take care of me, and he's afraid of that, you know? Like, all right, dude, drink your old style and shut up.
My God, I love old bastards who think that, like, this group of kids now, you know, they're going to have to take care of me, and they shudder to think no one's going to, honestly, dude,
right.
you know, that is not going to affect you. And, by the way, they aren't worse. They're the same as you were when you were 16.
Exactly. They have the same feelings, the same problems. It's, like I said earlier, it manifests differently now.
Right.
But it's the same stuff.
It's weird and scary for you and for them to interact because you have nothing in common. You don't have any common ground. Like, they don't understand what it's like for you to be, you know, pushing 50, and you have completely forgotten what it was like to be 16.
Anytime I hear people talking like this in real life, I'm like, really, dude?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Are you sure things are horrible now?
I know.
They were horrible then.
And honestly,
everything was this. We're going through the same stuff.
Yes, I probably run off at the mouth a little too much
You've
in these
done
situations.
It sometimes,
yes,
but I mean, you at least understand that these issues are ever present.
Of course, right.
They're universal human truths.
Yes, and in the end, I have never blamed the kids.
No, you haven't.
That's actually the
more like the technology or the government.
Right. It's people my own age and older who are up to all this bullshit. Yes.
Yes. It's our fault.
Yes.
It's not their fault.
That's right.
Pretty good stuff. But yeah, I like how Carl is just so wise.
Right.
And puts him in his place. Like, man, are you even hearing yourself talk right now? This is insane. I think he asks him what he wanted to be when he was younger at one point. Mm-hmm. I forget what he says, but definitely wasn't a teacher making $31,000 a year and owning a house.
Well, Carl says, when I was a kid, I wanted to be Joe Namath.
I wanted to be Joe Namath. I love that.
I'm sorry, it was John Lennon. What was I thinking?
John Lennon, yes.
I don't know how I
Joe
came
Namath
up with
is
Joe
excellent,
Namath.
though, too.
Yes,
I mean, different people, for sure.
Equally cool, probably.
Maybe.
Yeah.
How cool was Joe Namath?
Okay, well,
actually?
maybe not as far as like a important to the culture.
I bet he could eat a good steak and drink a good beer.
Yeah, he could do all those things. Yes, he did them. You know,
could he write
constantly.
a great song though? I don't know.
No, and I want to make it clear, everybody, that like late in life, Joe Namath is not someone to idolize. That guy sucked.
I know nothing about him personally.
Okay.
I just know who he is.
Right.
But yeah, that's pretty much the end of it. We don't really see Vernon much more, right?
Right. After this is after his talk with Carl, he's kind of out of the movie.
Yeah.
And he is completely derelict in his duties because he put John Bender in that broom closet or whatever in order to keep an eye on him. He never checks on him again. And meanwhile, Bender is now in the ductwork like John McClane.
He sneaks out through this drop ceiling. He sets up all the desks and bookcases into some contraption to climb out of.
Right,
there's a
stack.
fan.
Right.
He just stacks this
man.
furniture up.
And I'm trying to picture Bender actually climbing up this contraption that he made.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Home Alone, in Home Alone 2, at the end, Marv builds that thing to climb out of that hole. This is what he did.
Exactly.
And this guy would die with one wrong move. It would collapse and you'd be dead.
And what happens to him, from that acoustic ceiling tile, he'd be dead there too.
Right, he's crawling through the ceiling. And have you ever seen a drop ceiling? That can't hold any weight.
No, I don't know how he's making it through 6 or 7 of them before he actually falls.
Yeah, I guess he's on the framing. Even that's gonna barely hold you.
Yeah, because the framing itself, it's probably not even metal.
It's some weak aluminum at the most, right?
And
but he falls through the ceiling and lands in the library. He's back, everybody.
Right, and I mean, that ceiling is, 25 feet high, and he just falls through it, and he's no worse.
You know what? We do get another Vernon scene here. This is before the old style scene.
You're
right.
Yes.
He hears the ruckus.
That's right.
And he runs in. What was that ruckus?
Oh man!
And Bender, of course, hides under Claire's desk, and commits some crimes against humanity.
Glad you brought this up. Yes. I don't know exactly what Bender does under that desk, but he looks up her skirt and then he goes toward her exposed panties, presumably to either diddle her or perform oral. Either way, it's done without consent, and his punishment is being kneed in the face and slapped around a little bit.
At least he gets hit.
That's true.
At least he gets hit.
But I can't believe that Andy isn't putting his head through a window.
Right, yeah. He doesn't waste them right there.
Exactly. You promised a wasting, Andy.
But they all defend him, right? Like
Right.
they're like, well, can you describe the ruckus, sir? Yeah.
That's like Andy's best moment of defiance, actually.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
And so, like, they all get him to leave, they're not helpful at all. And then as soon as Vernon leaves the room, that's when, John gets, his head beat
That's right.
by Claire.
I like when, and it's a great moment from Molly Ringwald where she just like open hand slapping him.
Oh, she hits him a few times, like before he's even up all the way, just like smack, 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 smack. Good.
Yeah, it's
good. Grab the chair and hit him in the face.
He deserves a chair shot at least.
Yes. You want some legs? Here's 4 chair legs. Smack.
An actual chair shot
Yeah,
with
dude.
like a wooden chair, yes.
For real, man. Chair shot heard round the world.
Yes. Now, what comes next is like the TV cut I remember that we had on tape. It didn't have this sequence.
When they get high?
The getting high montage didn't exist.
Really?
Yeah, it just cut right to them exchanging purses and wallets after Bender asks Brian, hey, kipe all my doobage?
Right. So Bender gets the weed out. He goes off somewhere to smoke. And then Molly Ringwald is kind of just like, yeah, I'm going.
Right.
And then goes. And then Brian is sitting there like, I'm going.
Yes.
And then and then Andy kind of reluctantly gets up and goes like later.
Right.
Right. And Allison is sitting there the whole time. She doesn't really go with them.
Yeah, and Allison is like the unpredictable straight arrow. You'd think that like someone like her, you take a look at her and you'd be like, you prejudge someone and go, oh yeah, she gets high.
Right. And she even explained earlier, like, all I drink is vodka.
Right.
Like, so she seems like the person who would be here partying hard.
Yes.
But no, we get the montage of them smoking, and we get like Anthony Michael Hall wearing his Ray Charles sunglasses, doing like Richard Pryor material.
This is the second time he's done this in a John Hughes film.
Right?
He always has to impersonate older African American men whenever he gets high. I don't get it.
It's his thing, I guess.
It is.
I don't know.
Yes.
I don't find it funny, actually.
No, it's terrible.
It's supposed to be funny, but
I mean, yeah, it's just it's one of those dated things that happen in 80s films.
John Hughes did a lot of dumb race jokes like this.
Yeah, he did.
They were mean-spirited.
Of course.
They were done in the wrong way. I don't think it was intentionally trying to be like racist or anything, but the way they come off is like, no, you did that the wrong way. You handled that wrong, John Hughes.
Right. And I mean, like, I think that Geddy Watanabe is very funny in 16 Candles.
Yeah.
I mean, he's awesome.
He's good.
Yes. It's just that, like, the humor's a bit mean-spirited, you know?
Yeah, it's very outdated.
Yeah.
Even for the 80s. But yeah, they all get high. There's a montage. They're having fun, joking around. Andy ends up hotboxing the foreign language section. Like, he doesn't even smoke with the 3 other people, right? He just is like, all of a sudden, in this room filled with smoke. And he comes out, and there's this 80s song playing, and he's just, like, doing this, like, crazy, like, pumping fist dance, like, jerking his body around, dancing.
I know.
And, like, running around the whole library doing cartwheels and flips. And it's Emilio doing them.
Yeah, it's really him doing it.
He's punching and, like, jogging at the same time. He even punches the American flag, which I thought was really cool.
Yes, and, you know, this movie takes place in Illinois, but I have no idea why the Georgia state flag from 1956 is there hanging next to the American and Illinois state flags. I mean, it's got the stars and bars on it and everything, and they show it twice.
I guess, is it in the history section of the library?
It's Illinois. Why would it be there?
Maybe there's a book about Georgia. I don't know.
One book denotes a full flag?
I guess. I don't know.
Oh, Jesus, man. Okay.
Well, they couldn't afford 2 books. They could afford a book and a flag. That was it.
True. That was the compromise. But this montage of him doing all this athletic, weird dancing ends with him back in the foreign language room, and he has a scream that can break glass.
Yeah, the glass pane on the door shatters. Much like the David Bowie quote at the beginning, actually.
That's true. That's a revisit. You're right.
But it's quite insane.
I know.
It's entertaining for
It is,
sure.
of course. And I just like watching Emilio Estevez run around and do flips. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But it is a bit. It's just a bizarre choice to have like the glass shatter from him making noise.
I read that John Hughes really regrets having the glass shatter.
Okay,
First, it was like his biggest regret of the movie. Like, he just thought it was I guess they did it, and then it stayed in, and now he's like, that was just dumb.
Right.
Like, I don't know why he hates it so much. Like,
because if you take like if you like try to be as realistic as you can be about this scenario, like if a kid broke the glass in the school library during Saturday detention, like it is such a massive event.
It is, but also books have been ripped apart. The whole place smells like Snoop Dogg's house.
I know, man. How can it not just reek so bad in there?
You think Vernon is so square he doesn't even know what that is?
It's possible. Yeah. I mean, yeah, because if he grew up in the 1960s, he's definitely the guy who wasn't smoking a joint.
Yeah, and he was afraid of it, but he knew nothing about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And he probably was really offended that Jim Morrison was like talking nasty on stage.
Yeah, he didn't like John Lennon at all.
Absolutely not.
That's for sure. But yeah, now we get the scene of them like going through each other's purses and wallets. Like, is this something kids used to do? I don't know why you would do this. Maybe they just got high and it's a high idea.
I did that with somebody.
I've never done this.
Yeah. It was actually a cool thing. I wish I'd done more of it.
It sounds good because you really get to know somebody, right? It's a great, icebreaker. You know what? Next time I go on a date with someone, be like, let me go through your wallet. Let me go through your purse. See how that turns out.
That's another thing that's dead now, actually, is that, like, we all just carry these, like, I don't know, these little accordion things to hold our credit cards and shit in them.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes it's actually just stuck to our cell phones. We don't have this anymore.
Yeah, my wallet's very slim.
Right.
There's nothing in there except a couple cards. That's it. There's nothing you can find.
No. There wouldn't be a girly picture in there.
I should put one in there just for old time's sake.
Probably, yeah.
I'll put a condom in there just because.
There you go. Right.
Just to keep it classic.
I mean, yes, because the good thing about the condom in the wallet was also the indentation. That was just because the thing
people
was in there
could
too
know.
long.
Like, oh yeah, that guy's cool.
There you go.
That guy has sex.
Yes, that's right. That man is sexually active.
Or he just has a condom.
Which is actually the case.
Never going to be used.
I know. And the whole thing with the indentation was usually, like, I
think in high school I had one disintegrate at one point.
I know.
It was like in there for so long.
The thing with mine, it actually, like, it held the shape. Like, even after the condom was gone.
Like the wallet had the indentation. That's some good leather.
I think it was a Walgreens job. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
But it's still, like, who knows? It was whatever imitation leather it was. It really did the job.
Yep. So they're going through each other's bags and they start asking each other questions and finding out more about each other.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good scene, man. It's pretty good.
Yes, especially too that, like, I like the way they pair off. I mean, like, Claire and John are together, and at one point, like, John is, like, misusing her makeup kit, and, like, she couldn't be touching
brushing
that.
his teeth with her, like, comb or something
with, like, the mascara applicator.
Right, and then she later uses the same brush to put makeup on Ali Sheedy and ruined my day. I know it ruined your day, right, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
But yeah, I mean, John Bender's saliva is all over this stuff.
Disgusting.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And he's got a bunch of, like, pictures of, like, girls he dates in his wallet, and
yeah, they talk about. She's like, well, you don't just believe in dating one guy, one girl. Mm-hmm. He's like, no. And she's like, well, I do.
Yeah.
You know? And so you get to learn about each of them, and I could tell you. I wouldn't think Bender was the kind of guy who would settle down, you know?
I wouldn't think
so.
so.
Doesn't seem that way.
No, not at this moment.
But Claire, I can see that happening. She just seems that way. I mean, that's the stereotype of these character types, right? Like, that's what we think about when we think about this is the princess, you know, this is the troublemaker guy.
Yep.
You know, we think about those things.
Yeah, and I mean, stereotypes, obviously, they get started for a reason because there's, like, a kernel of truth to some of the stuff, some of the characteristics. Mm-hmm. And yeah, when you apply them to people, unfortunately, people use that one bit of semi-truth to, like, paint with a broad brush against a whole group of people, and that's what's dangerous. But, like, with this, yeah, some of Bender's troublemaker attributes would be exactly what you think.
Yep. Who else paired off? It was like Andy and Brian paired off.
Andy and Brian paired off, and they're, like, exchanging wallets. And, like, it's fun to watch Andy go through Brian's wallet because he's got a fake ID in there that he uses so that he can vote in elections.
This ID says you're 54 years old. He's like, yeah, they screwed it up. And it's great. Apparently, this was an improvised line by Anthony Michael Hall where he's like, why do you need a fake ID? And he goes, so I can vote. Of course, that's what Brian would say,
That
right?
is fantastic. Yeah.
And I wish more people had IDs for that reason.
I mean, yeah. Can you imagine like kids using fake IDs to vote because they actually are that civic minded?
Yeah, I mean, this episode's probably coming out after the election.
Right.
But if you get it early somehow, vote, everybody.
Exactly. Get in there and do the right
Get that
thing.
fake ID and vote.
Yes.
And go buy some old style with it. Actually, don't. God, I hate old style.
Well, if
I haven't
you're-
drank it in many years, but yeah.
If you're in Chicago, you got to do it.
You got to have it. I mean, I had it plenty up there.
Sure.
So it's the thing to do.
Yes.
So it turns out Allison knows all of Brian's information here. She like chimes in like, I know all this. And,
Right.
And like lists off his social, his address, everything. She had stolen the wallet earlier.
Yes.
And we find out she's a kleptomaniac. She
Right.
likes to steal things.
Yes.
And then she wants them to look in her purse, and they say no for some reason because they're being jerks.
Right.
And she just dumps it out anyway. And they're just shocked at all the crap that's in there. And it's all stuff she's stolen pretty much.
Yeah. And it's also like because there's tons of stuff in there. She it's kind of like a go bag that she carries around.
Yeah.
And she talks about how at any moment she needs to like be able to like run away. It's kind of like what Dexter does.
Yeah, yeah.
There isn't like various currencies in there, but give her time and it'll probably
Right.
evolve into that.
A few supplies,
Sure.
and it's revealed kind of she has a rough home life and she needs to be able to run away
Yeah.
and go anywhere she wants. And she says, I don't have to live on the street because they
Right.
say something about that to her. She's like, I'm not going to live on the street. I can go to Florida. I can go to New York. I can go anywhere I want.
Yeah.
I don't have to go to the street.
Right.
And she gets kind of upset about it. And Andy tries to comfort her, actually. He follows after her and kind of tries talking to her about it.
Yeah.
And they get into a little argument, and he kind of opens up a little about stuff, and it gets her to drop her guard about how, like, her parents just ignore her all the time. And
Right.
that's her big issue with her parents, is like they just act like she doesn't exist.
Yeah, which is pretty devastating because like, and Ali Sheedy is just fantastic in this scene, and she just like has this heartbreaking moment where she goes, "They ignore me."
Yeah.
And he just, like, I love how wise Andy is, and that he just kind of goes, yeah. And he just nods his head.
Yeah.
He understands completely. He's a really good kid, too, Andy. In
Yeah.
addition to, he even lets her assess him. Like, before she makes her confession, she tells him, you do everything everybody tells you to do. That's a problem.
Yeah.
And he acknowledges it. Yes, I don't think for myself.
I said it before, this is a therapy session
Yeah.
at the detention.
We all could have used more of this kind of stuff, like,
I know.
as teenagers.
Like, I said it before, I admire the honesty. Like, I wish everyone would be like this. Like, wouldn't it be a better place?
If we'd all worked out these issues years ago, I mean, yeah, probably so.
Yes. And it's heartbreaking later when they talk about, well, what's going to happen on Monday? And they kind of, most of them realize, they probably all realize it might go back to normal.
Yeah.
Like, maybe things will change a little, but it's probably just going to be back to normal.
And I think we're actually at that scene now. It's where they're all sitting together.
Yeah, they're sitting in a kind of like a semicircle up
Yeah.
on the second floor of this library. By the way, if you have a second floor library, that rules, right?
Yes. I can't imagine such a thing. That seemed like, it seemed like such an amazing place. And like the set of the library just was like this endless, like the best
Yeah.
public library in your town is Shermer High School.
I know, right? There's one just down the road from here, the Grants Trail Library.
Uh-huh.
And it's kind of like that. It's got like the staircase
Yes.
that goes up, and there's a second floor that's kind of open. It's not exactly like this set, but
Yeah.
it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. U City has a spectacular staircase.
Yeah, they got
too.
a great one, man.
Right.
But yeah, this is probably my favorite scene in the movie, like when they're all sitting here and opening up with each other. And
Right.
It is just amazing.
Yeah, it's a real set piece because it allows all the actors to become very honest about their characters. And we find out finally, like what all of them fully did.
Yeah.
We found out early in the movie that like Bender, he pulled a phony fire alarm. That's what got him this particular Saturday detention.
Mm-hmm.
And what he did to get in here isn't as important as what everybody else did, particularly Andy.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about, taping Larry Lester's buns together is what Andy says.
Yeah.
Andy's monologue about Larry is like just wonderfully written. And I think Emilio gives such a great performance. I mean, the best part is that Andy understands empathy now.
Yeah.
And when he talks about imagining Larry having to go home and tell his parents what happened to him and how humiliated he must have felt, it's just so powerful.
Yeah. And he says, how do I apologize for that? You can't.
Right.
There's no way you can apologize for something like that.
Right.
It's impossible.
Like, you can't really, even decades later, I mean, like, Larry may forgive him for it,
Right.
but he will never forget, like, how bad he felt in that moment.
Yeah. And it's really sad, too, because Brian says, oh, you did that to Larry.
Yeah.
Because I'm assuming Larry is one of Brian's nerdy friends.
Right.
And he's had to hear Larry's side of the story.
Right.
And help his friend through the humility.
And, like, when Andy tells the story, how he was just sitting in the locker room and Larry was there and he saw that he's small and weak and he just jumped on him and started wailing on him.
Yeah.
Because he thought about all the stuff that his dad had said about, like, how he used to cut loose at school and how, you know, he maybe needed to do that as a rite of passage too.
Yeah.
And all the jocks around just started laughing and cheered him on while it was going on.
Yep.
And I mean, if you ever, like, have witnessed this in school, or you were the victim of it yourself, or you inflicted it on people, it is traumatic. And often, like, I thought about an instance where I saw some kid, like, getting a swirly, and I didn't do anything to stop it because I was a freshman and these were big kids.
Yeah.
And I had to just put my head down and walk away. And I mean, like, I don't fully regret it every day of my life, but I still think about it sometimes. I was mowing the lawn the other day and I was like, oh my God, poor Will. You know?
It's like, I wish I did something.
Yes.
But in the moment, you feel like you can't.
Right. I'm going to be victimized next.
Yeah, and that kind of sucks because that's not who we want to be, right? We want to be the person
I know.
that stands up.
That saved the
like
day.
Andy has been doing throughout the detention, standing up for Brian and Claire. We want to be that kind of a person.
Yeah.
But most of us aren't. Most people won't step up when it's needed like that.
I know.
It's hard. It's so hard to do.
It is because, like, you're always like thinking about self-preservation, and especially back then when you didn't know what your fate was going to be. I mean, like, you know, just the idea of, I mean, because look, we've all been bullied before too, and so am I going to put myself through additional beatings? I mean, you know, probably not.
Right, and then when you're in high school, that's the be-all, end-all, right? It's not like, can't wait till I'm get a job and, you know, deal with adult problems. Like, you don't think about that stuff.
Right.
This is my problem right now.
Right.
This is my life.
Yeah.
I'm not going to think about how things are going to be in 5 years. I mean, I have to deal with what's happening now.
Right. And that kid getting the swirly was one of 1,000 incidents that I either witnessed or I was a player in.
Yeah.
You know, or it was happening to me, or, I mean, getting pantsed in front of girls. I mean, that stuff happened.
Yeah. It sucks.
Right.
Do you think Brian would do something, though? Like, in this movie, Brian seems like a kid who isn't too afraid to speak up.
Well, I don't think he would have done anything to, like...
to stop the Lester thing?
I think that he probably would have... He might have, like, yelled and screamed, but he wouldn't have, like, grabbed, like, Andy and tried to pull him off.
Probably not. Yeah.
Yeah.
He would just toss him across the room.
Exactly.
You know? Like,
yes.
I mean... He's taller than Andy, though, in this film, right?
That's the weird thing.
Anthony Michael Hall apparently had a growth spurt on the set.
Right.
I read that Judd Nelson said he was shorter than him when he started shooting, and he was taller than him when they ended shooting.
Well, because I think that he was... I think him and Molly were the only real teenagers.
Yeah, Anthony Michael Hall and Molly Ringwald were both 16 or 17.
Yes.
Everyone else is like 23, 24.
So it makes sense that he's still growing.
Yeah.
But the idea of, like, you start a movie taller than someone and then end it shorter, that's weird.
Right, yeah. Well, vice versa.
Yes.
That would be really weird, Dave, because you said it backwards. If you ended up shorter.
I meant from Judd Nelson's
Benjamin
perspective.
Button during the production?
No, it wasn't. Yes.
That would be awesome, man.
Science, yes.
If anyone can do it, it's Brian.
Right, the curious case of Brian Johnson, dude.
Yep, it's a great movie. And it's this movie, because this movie's great.
Right.
But yeah, this whole monologue is amazing. It made me think when we did our Michael Clayton episode, our question of the week was amazing monologues, right?
Yes.
No one mentioned this, right? None of the listeners mentioned this. We didn't even think of this.
Right.
This is up there.
It is, especially toward the end when he's thinking about what his dad and, you know, like, you got to be a winner, you know.
my God.
I'm not going to, you know, tolerate losing in this family, you know.
Yeah. Win.
Right.
And he's got tears in his eyes when he's doing this.
And sometimes I wish my knee would give out and he would just forget all about me.
Yep. And the whole scene is shot from like a really low angle. They're all sitting down just on the floor.
Yeah.
and everyone's kind of a semicircle around him, and he's in the center near the railing. And what the camera does, it's low, like eye level with him, so we're near the ground, like almost kneeling kind of height. And it's not a total close-up, but it's zoomed in on him. But the camera slowly moves from like one side of the circle to the other, and the other characters pass in the foreground while the camera goes behind their heads as he's delivering this amazing speech.
Right.
And it just continues to move around this circle unbroken through the whole shot. It's just amazingly done.
Yes. I kept trying to notice if maybe they were using the pillars as like a wipe.
They probably
It's
did.
possible.
I mean, it's possible. The way it's shot, it looks like a oneer.
Right.
But, yeah, there's the old trick, where
Yeah.
you cross the doorway or cross the pillar. Like, yeah. It's the rope trick, right?
I was thinking of rope the whole
Yeah.
time. It was like, okay, are we going to use Farley Granger's back? No.
And what's so great about rope is that you can totally see the transitions.
It's really obvious,
It's like,
I know.
okay, yeah, like the film totally changes stock in like cuts, and the guy's back is 2 inches to the other side. Like, it's totally obvious, of
course.
but it's still great,
Yeah,
right?
it's still awesome.
Because the illusion, I mean, you still feel like you're in the moment.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't feel like anything happened. You're still there.
Right. Right.
But yeah, it's the best shot in the movie. It's the best scene in the movie, if you ask me.
Yeah, agreed.
And Emilio, mwah.
I know. He kills
Amazing
it.
stuff.
Right. And then this is my least favorite John Bender moment, is when he starts in on Claire.
Yeah.
Because, like, I understand, I totally get where he's coming from in that, like, he hears about her problems and he's trying to compare them to his own.
Yeah.
And, of course, what she has to go through isn't anywhere close to what he perceives. What he perceives she goes through isn't anywhere close to what he has to go through on a daily basis.
Right.
I mean, she's not being physically abused at home nonstop, at least not according to what he knows. And when he hears what she goes through, he's unsympathetic.
Yeah.
And what really gets him and turns everybody against him is when she does this trick, like a party trick, with a lipstick where she puts it in her bra and like puts her head down, and she's able to like, stretch her neck to the point where she can like apply the lipstick without touching it. And everybody's impressed and, gives her a hand, but John is sarcastic about it.
Yeah.
And says that his image of her is totally blown.
Yep.
And he
Man.
gets really vicious with his, and he starts calling her a bitch. And, like later on, he even attacks her further when, you mentioned earlier about when Brian asked the group, what's going to happen on Monday? I consider you guys my friends now. And she tells him, I don't think we're going to be friends. And
Yes, she's brutally honest about it.
she is.
And sadly, she's probably right.
And that's what sucks is that, like, she says to Andy, like, oh, come on, Andy, if Brian comes up to you in the hallway, you'd say hi to him. But when he left, you'd tell your friends, oh, he's an asshole. You'd cut him up.
Yep.
And she admits that the same exact thing would happen if he said hi to her.
Yep.
And that's when Bender like goes off on her, that how shitty that is to do to somebody, and you don't have the balls to tell your friends, that you're gonna like who you want to like.
Right. Which, true. Like, that sucks. That's how it will probably play out.
Right.
And Bender is right. Like, that's a piece of shit move.
Of course,
Really is.
Yes.
But he doesn't have to take it as far as he does. He gets really mean about it.
I know.
And he says something about her earrings.
Yeah.
Like how your dad probably gave you those, for Christmas. I bet they're real diamonds, right? You know what I got at the Bender household? Here's a carton of cigarettes, son. Smoke up.
Yep.
And he brings her to tears. And again, like Andy's yelling on, everyone's going nuts here.
Right.
And God, he's such a broken man, right? Like,
Of course.
his father has totally turned him into this monster.
And I love too that I remember hearing about in acting how the best actors are the best reactors.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's I've probably brought this up on the show before, but like whenever you see someone do what Molly Ringwald does in this scene, where she's reacting to what Bender is saying to her, she's not stopping. She doesn't stop talking and wait for her turn to speak. Like, she's really letting what he's saying happen to her.
Mm-hmm.
And she's very good. I mean, when she just yells, I don't want to scream "shut up" into the mic, but it's Molly Ringwald screaming "shut up," and like she really feels it, and she wants him to stop, and then she like kind of does this hump thing, hurrah, and then she's trying not to cry, but it's obvious it's happening, and she's really hurt.
Yeah.
And her and Judd Nelson and Molly Ringwald are also phenomenal in this scene.
Yeah, it's it's such amazing acting.
Yeah.
From everyone here is really great. I mean, and everyone in this circle has the heightened emotional state.
Yeah, of course.
From everything they've been saying, of course, they've become so vulnerable, each and every one of them, that, of course, anything is going to bring that emotion out at this point.
Yes, and Claire had actually even been tricked into admitting she was a virgin because Allison claimed to be a nymphomaniac who does everything sexual. And,
even with her therapist.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
She says, I don't think it was rape because I paid him. Which is such a horrible thing to say, but I think it's a great joke.
I do too. I loved also Bender's joke when he's like kind of continuing to interrogate Claire. It's before he gets mean. He goes, "Now, sex is a weapon. You said it yourself. You use it to get respect."
Yeah.
It's like, dude, she didn't say that, dude.
She even says it like, you guys are twisting my words. And they all kind of are ganging up on her at that point.
Right.
No one's trying to be mean to her like John ultimately does.
I know.
But they are teasing her about it.
Yeah, I mean, because you hear Emilio Estevez's voice like in ADR. He's like, "Come on, talk to us, Claire."
Yeah,
you know?
right. He's like, well, you never admitted before, right? Tell us.
Don't be a jerk.
Yeah. And I love Brian's story here is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
It's about how he took shop class because he thought it'd be an easy A so he can keep his GPA up.
Right.
But he failed the class because he couldn't make the elephant lamp work where you pull the trunk and the light turns on.
That sounds like a tough project.
It sounds really tough.
Yeah.
And I really like how he failed it, too, because it's a dose of life.
Of course.
This isn't easy.
No.
This isn't for the idiots, quote unquote, that you said take this class.
Think about what kind of skill you have to be an electrician.
It's something.
Yeah.
And to make a lamp.
Right. Or to hang drywall. Or
Yeah.
to whatever. I mean, it's like...
It's not easy.
No, you have to have a scientific mind to know how to build things.
I've finished my basement before and wired the whole thing. Try to figure out a 3-way switch.
Dude.
That is fucking impossible.
Yeah, I know.
I had to wire that thing twice.
When it comes to DIY stuff, I steer clear of electricity completely. I will do almost everything, but I won't do because I'm scared of shocking myself.
I'll tell you what, it was one of my proudest moments though,
I bet
because
it
my
was.
dad couldn't figure out how to do
Holy
it, and my
shit.
dad is a dad. I'll tell you.
Of course, yeah, he's a skilled dad.
Yes. He definitely is. I think I earned some dad points then.
Probably so.
I'm a dad,
Right.
But I'm not that kind of a dad.
I know, but trust me, dude. I'm
a dude dad.
I was like, I was like so. It was like I was defusing a bomb when I replaced that garbage disposal. I mean, I was so careful
Oh, I
about
hate
it.
those things.
Yes.
Have you ever replaced a toilet?
No, I have not.
Not good.
But I wouldn't imagine. It's
Well,
probably really hard.
It's actually quite simple, but it's a pain in the ass.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And it takes real skill.
And a toilet is not weighted evenly. Right?
Right.
The weight is not distributed very evenly.
Uh-huh.
It's hard to carry.
Of course.
And they're like 100 pounds. It feels like it, at least. Anyway, what are we talking about here?
We're talking about Brian Johnson and his inability to build a lamp that's made out of an elephant with a trunk.
Yeah, so he fails the class.
Yes.
And what he decides to do is bring a gun to school and kill himself.
Yeah.
It's quite terrifying to hear him say this, especially in today's climate.
I know. Yeah, you watch this in modern audience watching a movie where a kid talks about bringing a gun to class. Obviously, it feels so much different than it did back then. And like when Andy, at first he doesn't want to admit it. He doesn't want to say like what they found in his locker. And Andy has to tell him like, "Hey, Brian, listen, you brought it up. You tell us what's going on."
Yeah.
And he says that he tried to commit suicide.
Yeah.
And he even the reason he brought up this story was because Claire had told him that you don't understand the kind of pressure that Andy and I have to, as cool kids.
As the popular kids,
Right.
we have so much pressure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he comes after her. He says, "You think I don't understand pressure, Claire? Well, fuck you!"
Yeah, dude.
And he goes into this story. And yeah, he I mean, honestly, I knew a kid who was in my grade, and he was Brian, essentially.
Yeah.
And he came in first place at every spelling bee. And he got all A's all the time from first grade through all the way through high school. I was always classmates with him.
Yeah.
And he's now, an academic somewhere. But I remember seeing him come in second at a chess tournament in, I think, 5th grade. And he was so broken. I mean,
Yeah.
he didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I don't think he had the pressure at home, at least, I shouldn't say he didn't. I don't know. Maybe he did. Maybe that was the whole reason he was feeling this way.
Yeah, could be.
But yeah, it's when you see someone who is like disgustingly perfect like that, and then like there's one little flaw, then it totally upends their life.
Yeah. I was kind of like that as a child. In,
Okay.
like elementary school,
Right.
I got straight A's all the time. And I remember the first time I got like a B or a C on something, it like was devastating to me.
Okay.
I was like, okay, what's wrong with me?
Oh, Jesus.
You know, because I'm used to just getting perfect grades.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm not. So I'm not smart anymore.
It got
was
like that extreme for you the first time you got like a non-A?
I didn't get to like, I'm going to shoot myself with a flare gun.
Okay,
But
well, thank God, right.
it was like, holy crap. It was like a total shock.
Yes.
Just like, who am I?
And that makes sense, the who am I? Because like your whole identity was wrapped up in being excellent all the time.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
then I stopped worrying about it. You know,
Right.
I didn't hang on to it for very long. Still did pretty good in school.
Yeah, of course.
But if I didn't get a perfect grade, whatever. No
Okay,
problem.
well, that's
Who cares?
healthy. Good.
By senior year, I was flunking intentionally in a few classes and cutting early. I was playing basketball in the gym one time and
yeah.
got called out
Right.
by a teacher who knew I skipped regularly.
Yeah.
Scott, where are you supposed to be? It was funny because I picked up my friend from a different high school, and we went back to my high school and played in the gym.
Dude, okay. So here's the thing. After I got kicked out of school, I had the same thing.
Yeah.
I went back with a lot of my friends were one grade ahead of me, and I just went back to going to school with them in the afternoons. Like,
Yeah.
I just went to like their 6th and 7th hours with them. I had no business being on school grounds, but I was just there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a social thing,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
of course. When you're 17, you need to be around other 17-year-olds.
Yes, you do. I remember the teacher saying, "Who are you?" to my friend, and he goes, "I'm with him." And then we ran to my car and left.
Yes.
Pretty good.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, we were great students, man. It was awesome. Anyway, yes, I mentioned a flare gun. It turns out Brian's gun was a flare gun, and it went off in his locker. And that's how he got in trouble. That's why he's in detention.
And it's a perfect way to break the tension of what was a really tense scene leading up to that.
Oh, yeah, from that Larry Lester scene?
Yes.
That was right before this moment. They start laughing about it being a flare gun.
Because
Andy does.
The whole thing of like Andy like starts to laugh inappropriately in the
Yeah,
moment because
right.
he's like because the other people haven't like fully caught
They
on
haven't
yet.
thought it through yet.
Yes, but Andy's
a
just
flare gun.
A gut reaction is Brian, you idiot. You know, you brought a flare gun. You were going to kill yourself by firing a flare into your mouth. What are you doing? But like, that is such a Brian move. As horrible as it is, the idea of committing suicide by any means, the idea that Brian would do it with a flare gun?
Yeah, like, I don't know what his plan was. He's smart enough to realize it's probably not going to really kill him unless he does something, like shoots himself in the eye. I have no idea. I mean, a flare gun, I'm sure it fires with a massive amount of force.
Yeah.
But not like a regular revolver,
Right.
But I'm sure it could probably take your head off. It probably could.
It probably could, but there is a pretty good chance that it's going to backfire. Like
or
something
by like ricochet or...
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. This isn't going to go off like it would a regular gun.
Maybe he's going to douse himself in gasoline and then fire the gun.
Shit. Like the guy in Waking Life?
Yeah, dude.
Right.
Exactly.
Oh, man.
I mean, it's been done in movies plenty of times,
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
Yeah,
You're right.
yeah.
Yes.
So that's Brian's story. It does
Right.
break the ice.
It
and
does.
then they get into the thing with Claire and her lipstick talent, and
Yes.
it devolves into a huge fight because of John Bender once again.
Right.
There's another great thing they say here. I think Ali Sheedy says it, like, eventually we all just kind of become our parents, and there's
Yes.
nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, and one of this, somebody like replied to something I did on social media with an Ali Sheedy still.
Nice.
It's where she goes, when you grow up, your heart dies.
Ooh.
And I was just like, oh, man. And yeah.
Man.
And her delivery of that line, it is cutting.
Your heart dies, and then you start a podcast.
Dude, exactly.
That's what happens.
You work in IT and you podcast.
Hey, man, it's
That's
the
right.
life.
Your heart dies.
It's the life, man. And I think after this is when they do the whole scene about Monday coming and stuff.
Yeah.
And Brian's great in this too, because he does say, like, I consider you friends.
Right.
And then they get in the whole thing, and he's like, well, I can tell. He's crying and stuff. Like, he's so sad that they're saying they're not going to be friends anymore and to him. And he's like, well, I would never do that to you.
Right.
I would talk to you. I would be your friend.
Yeah, that's
it's
so
devastating
sad.
to see him do this. And he's, like, really teared up and, like, upset about it. Anthony Michael Hall is excellent here.
And he includes Allison in it, too. He goes, I guess Allison and I are better people than you guys.
Yeah.
You know, because I think that Claire even, like, calls out Bender for what, because he's like, like, he's like being mean to her about, what he'd do to Brian. And she's like, no, you'd do the same thing.
Right. If he came up to you, if I came up to hang out with you, with your friends, you wouldn't talk to me.
Right. You tell them you were
you
tell them you were doing it with me so that you wouldn't, that they would.
Right. Yeah. You're not above it.
Right.
Exactly.
But yeah, and the whole thing crescendos with Allison admitting what she did to get into Saturday detention.
Oh, yeah. It's a bad one, everybody.
Right. She apparently didn't have anything better to do on a Saturday.
So she just came here.
I mean, it gets everybody to laugh.
Yeah.
And because they're in disbelief, as we all are, that a kid would ever be filled with such, I guess... I don't know what she's filled with. I mean, like, just it goes well beyond boredom or sadness. It's like, you would go to detention voluntarily just so that you could have some human connection.
She does reveal she has no friends in this moment when they're talking about remaining friends.
Right, because Brian even asked her, would you do that to me, Allison? She goes, I don't have any friends. But just like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah, that sucks.
Right.
And then she reveals she just came here because she has nothing better to do.
Yeah.
I mean, we already know her home life. She's invisible there.
Yeah.
And she has no friends, apparently, and so she just came here for no good reason.
Man, yeah, it's brutal.
That sucks, man.
Right.
So we get it after this amazing, great scene.
Yep.
Then we get another montage of them, like, dancing around the library and stuff.
There's 2 dancing montages.
I know, there's plenty of montages here. Molly Ringwald's, like, up on the balcony, like, doing that, like, MTV dance.
Dude, Molly Ringwald's the best dancer out of the 5.
Isn't it great?
Yeah, she's
I
fantastic.
don't know. I like Ali Sheedy doing that tribal dance where she, like,
I
goes
like
to the
that
floor.
too. Yeah,
it's kind of cool.
It's cool too, but, like, it's not as fluid as what Molly Ringwald's
No,
doing.
no, she's got the rhythm going.
She
here.
does.
Like,
I mean, she shows some
would
great moves.
Fit in at a ska concert for sure.
No question about it.
Yeah, she goes sees Madness all the time, man. It's 84.
That's right, probably so. Yep. And then 10 years she'll be at the Boss Tones.
Dude, that's the impression that I get. So
There you go. My favorite thing about the dance montage is that when Brian's searching through record albums and he starts throwing them around, he starts dancing. And at one point, he tries to pop his collar in a cool, sexy guy way, but, like, his shirt doesn't have a collar.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this was intentional from Anthony Michael Hall or not, but it's very funny because he has to mime the action of popping the collar.
Yep.
It's good.
I think it's great. He has amazing comedic timing.
I mean, he's a funny guy. Yeah, he's really good.
And he's wearing those Ray Charles glasses again, like playing records.
Yes, he is. He like whenever he like listens to music, he has to put these glasses.
Right, when he's
on.
cool, he wears these glasses. Dude, I bet on Monday he's wearing these glasses and he goes up to Andy and tries to talk to him. That's what happens.
Which would be a great move.
What's up, and man?
Yes, he would. He would like put a little stank on his name.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Oh my God. Yeah. So we get the montage. Time has passed. I think Bender goes back into the closet. He like climbs back into the closet.
How did he get back up there? I mean, like, it's ridiculous.
I'm sure he found a way.
Yeah.
But they convince Brian here to write the essay they're supposed to write.
Yes.
They're each supposed to write an essay themselves, 1,000 words. And not just the same word 1,000 times, as he clarified earlier.
Yes.
So they convince Brian to write it because he's the smartest and the best.
Right.
And I felt like they were kind of abusing him in this situation, but he does agree to it.
Yes, and
willingly.
He knows that they're abusing him in this situation. He even like, says, you just don't want to write your paper.
Right. And they're like, well, yeah, but also you're the best.
Yes, of course. But
and that's true. Like, you are the smartest one here. You're the best writer here.
And you're
I bet
right.
Ali Sheedy can write a mean poem, though. I'll tell you that.
I want to read Allison's book of teenage poetry.
Yes.
Yeah, you know it's pretty deep.
Yep, and all the drawings that are in there.
Man,
with the dandruff parmesan.
Yep.
But yeah, he has to write that.
Right.
And then this is when Claire ruins Allison. She puts makeup on her. She turns her. Dave.
I know.
I can't believe it.
It sucks. It really, like, because I think we had the same issue when we saw The Faculty.
Oh, yeah.
What happens to Clea Duvall at the end of that movie, where she goes from, like, being a gross goth girl into wearing Tommy.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same idea here, and Ali Sheedy is a stunning woman.
Yes.
Even with Parmesan cheese in her hair, she is, like,
yes,
really attractive.
The brooding, dark, mysterious, poetic woman. I mean, I'll take that. That's what I want.
That's right. You could see her dancing in the forest somewhere.
Yes. I mean, she's summoning evil, and I want to be in the middle of the pentagram.
You said it, dude. That's
but
exciting stuff.
She gets some mascara on, and she wears, like, this baby doll gown with her hair pinned up.
That's my biggest question about this is that, like, the makeover, whatever. Okay.
Where did she get a go bag?
I don't... Yeah, where did she get this summer frock? It had to be in the trouble bag.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, she is a full outfit change. And when she comes in, like, Brian is writing the essay, and he's like, oh, what?
Ooga.
Exactly.
Yes. And then Andy looks up, I
know. Yeah. Come on, Andy, you didn't see that she was gorgeous before this?
No, man.
What is your deal?
Yeah. So he's really into her now.
Oh, of course. Yeah, because she looks like a jock.
You know what he says? You know what he says to her? What happened to you?
Fucking hell. The wrong lesson is given to all children watching this movie.
Right? And she says, is that good or bad? And he goes, it's good. Yeah. Yeah.
You son of a bitch.
Yeah, now we're a couple.
Fucking... I can't... It sucks. It really sucks.
Gee.
Yeah. They want, I mean, like, the whole thing of, like, disaffected teen and like, the alienation we all feel. But in the end, you better... like fit in.
You better, yeah.
You better get
Emilio will not kiss you.
That's right. That's right. Wrong lesson.
Yeah. And then also, at this point, Claire sneaks into John's closet where he's, back in there hiding. I don't know who lets him out. Vernon probably doesn't. I mean, I don't know.
That's true, right?
But she walks in there and, like, peeks in and then, like, closes the door behind her, like... Yeah. I'm ready to do this.
It's a sexy move.
Yeah, it is. It's right. Like, I'm locking you in the closet with me, John Bender.
That's right.
Yeah.
And this is right after all that hostility between them.
Yes.
There was no moment of them making up.
Maybe when he was, like, climbing up into the vent, like John McClane again, she saw his butt in the jeans and was like, oh, man, that's a nice butt. Okay. And then was like, I got to make out with this guy.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to fight you on that one, too, because she saw that butt earlier many times. And, like...
But she touched it. She was probably pushing his butt into the vent.
So he had buns of steel.
He touched her. She touched him. And now it's closet time.
You know what? 80s sex math, everybody.
Exactly. Right. Let me sexually assault a woman and then end up with her, and she will happily do it.
Damn it. It's just the fucking worst. And I don't know how I feel about Claire and John getting together at the end.
I don't like it.
No.
One bit.
He was brutal to her. And they never made that right. And I understand this is the natural pairing for, like, the movie star thing. I mean, Judd Nelson and Molly Ringwald.
Yeah.
But he was not only overtly mean to her, as we referenced 3 times now, he sexually assaulted her. And his prize at the end is her hand and a diamond earring.
Yeah. It makes no sense.
It doesn't.
So she goes in there and they start flirting a little and then they end up kissing. It's like, really? This is unearned. Yes. I mean, there is something to the nice girl being attracted to the bad boy, right?
Yeah.
But he's totally abused you mentally, verbally, and sexually throughout the entire day.
Yes.
She has some real issues at home if this is how she's going.
And the movie tells us that is not the case, that she's just this attracted to him, and when they're in that closet together, he's being completely different than what he was. He's, like, all of a sudden kind of nice.
Yeah.
And if they had made him maybe just, I don't know, 40% less hostile to her, and maybe taken out the diddling earlier, and it was just a thing like where he is a bad kid and he, reads Kurt Vonnegut,
right?
And, and she's attracted to his dark and brooding nature.
Yeah.
Right, yes.
But no, because he drops his facade a little in the closet, like you said. He's kind of being nice. If we had more of that throughout the film, maybe it would be better. Because you can see, like, he has chinks in his armor throughout the whole film. He almost breaks down crying, and his only defense from being vulnerable is to lash out again.
Yes.
Claire definitely wouldn't. I don't think she would do this.
No, because, I mean, she is, like, think of, like, the most popular kids at your high school. I never saw them veer out of their group.
It's rare.
I mean, yeah, it is.
It's rare.
I'm sure it has happened, but I just never saw it.
Yeah.
Even when they wanted to. And there was reasons for that. Not because they were assholes. I mean, they were, but it was also because like, it was just, that was the order of things.
Right.
And if Claire and John Bender come into school on Monday, arm in arm, I mean, like, I hope they do, because that would, like, you know, like, change society.
I want to see John, like, he's like a nice, like, everyman now. Like, he's got a sweater on, and, you know, he smokes a pipe, and, like, she comes in wearing, like, ripped jeans and a bandana.
Okay, so they...
Like a Motley Crue shirt.
Yeah.
Like, that'd be excellent. Like, they switched roles.
So he's like a fancy man.
Yeah, he's very fancy. He owns a BMW now.
Oh, my gosh,
Yeah.
Well, this just got good, and, yeah.
The Breakfast Club, too, everybody.
I mean, yes, that really is what should have happened.
We don't get that, but we
Right.
do get them all leaving school and being picked up by their parents and stuff.
Yes.
And God, he's macking on her while she's on her dad's BMW's
Dude,
hood.
I can't believe she's leaning against her dad's car being made out with.
And she gives him the earring right in front of her dad, who probably did give them to her as a Christmas present.
And they probably are real diamonds.
Probably.
Yes.
Yeah. And these things are gigantic.
Yes, it's a huge diamond that wouldn't be in any engagement ring anybody would ever buy, because it's like, I mean, it's a...
Yeah,
it's,
Flavor Flav wouldn't even wear this.
And I mean, yes, exactly. And I mean, God, these earrings must have cost $10,000.
Yeah.
And they probably were like, you know, an armed guard was around when the transaction
That's
happened.
right. There were machine guns around.
Right.
You know there was blood all over these diamonds, right?
Oh, before they got there?
Yeah.
Yes.
These are true blood diamonds.
Yes, yeah, these are conflict jewels.
Yeah, and so Judd Nelson just puts one in his earlobe.
Man.
You know?
You
Nice. He's in love, man.
I mean...
You gotta put that diamond in there.
It's...
It made me want to pierce my ear again. I was like, dude, he's got like that one like ring here on the inner ear, and then the lobe's got the diamond in it. I was like, that's a good look.
I wore a silver hoop in my ear for I don't know how many years.
Yeah.
And I always thought I was awesome.
Me too, man.
You know? Yeah.
I had like a dangly skeleton for a bit.
Oh, man.
You know me.
Yes,
I have
dangly skeleton.
Skateboarding with a mohawk and a dangly skeleton earring. One time my grandma gave me a bunch of her old earrings, and I would put those in. They were like big, gaudy ass things, and they hurt. They weighed like 8 pounds each.
Oh, dude, I know those old lady earrings. They were, because you had to have that. That's probably why they had both of them, because it was the only way to like maintain.
Yeah, you have
balance.
to balance it out.
Right.
Otherwise, you'd have neck issues.
Of course, right.
I would try to skateboard with these things in, and it would just like the inertia would like pull it up and down and like make my ear stretch, and it hurts so bad.
Of course, dude, you had a full-on Christmas ornament.
I
hanging
thought
out
I
of
was
your...
cool though.
Yeah, of course.
I definitely was.
Yes. I definitely was.
And we also see Andy and Allison kissing
right
out in front of Andy's dad's truck. And she rips the letter, like the state champ patch off his Letterman jacket. Like, this is mine now, boyfriend.
I know.
And she leaves in her car.
It's, like that move of her ripping the patch off and taking it for herself, like that's a really cool thing. And I mean, I like seeing Ali Sheedy and Emilio Estevez, you know, like as a couple in a movie together.
They look good.
They look great.
Like,
yeah, they have great chemistry. And I mean, like the two characters were obviously falling in love before her stupid makeover.
Right. Yeah.
But like, I like that she remains Allison. You know,
right,
even...
she's still stealing stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right
I mean,
in front of them.
there's affection attached to the action, right?
Yes.
Like, this is my boyfriend's Letterman jacket. I'm taking a part of it now. Like, that was things you did in high school, right?
Yeah, she's going to go take that patch and put it in a book of poems and,
bleed on it.
Yeah, of course.
She hasn't changed, everybody.
Right.
At least in my head canon, she's the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
And actually, even too, like, I think about the Saturday night for all these characters.
Yeah.
They're all going to go home. They're all probably grounded, but they're all thinking about what happened this day.
Oh, man. That would be a great sequel.
Yes.
You know?
Now, only Brian didn't get to pair off with anybody, and it sucks for him. But, like, imagine the longing of the other 4 characters. Like, they just, are in this exciting new relationships, but they can't get on the phone.
Oh, man. That sucks.
It does.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Brian's probably going home and having some, like, real epiphany, like, scientific realization that's going to change the world.
I hope so.
That's probably what's happening here.
Yes.
He's going to solve global warming.
Well, get on it, Brian.
Yeah, it's been too long. It's been 40 years.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. But we do get a voiceover of Anthony Michael Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Vernon comes in and finds the letter he wrote, and the voiceover reads the letter, and it's basically the same thing we heard at the beginning.
Yeah.
And it says, you wanted us to write about ourselves, and we found out we're not who you thought we were. We're not just these things. We're each of these. Like, we are all of these things, basically. And they list, like, the jock, the princess, and all those things again. Like, and what's nice is that each person who is that archetype says that type in the voiceover.
The actor's voice.
Like, the actor says that word.
Right.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And he signs it off, "Sincerely, The Breakfast Club."
Yes, and we get a truly iconic image of John Bender walking across the football field. He extends his fist in a freeze frame.
Don't you?
That's right.
Forget about me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Dude, freeze. Oh, it's so good. I read that that wasn't supposed to be what he did. He was just supposed to kind of walk. And then, they let him do whatever, and he did that in one take, and they were like, "Oh, that's fucking it, dude. That's it." And it became one of the most iconic images in cinema history.
Yeah.
Pretty
right.
amazing, dude.
I mean, like, I saw, I'm going to get this t-shirt probably. It's the silhouette, essentially, of it. And because everybody's going to know what it is. It's the long coat and the fashionably long hair and the extended fist. And it says everything and nothing.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like a symbol of defiance almost too. Like, hey, we fought the system and we're beating them.
That's true. Yes. Right.
But it's also, you can just see like, oh man, I just made out with Molly Ringwald. Yeah.
I mean,
it could be that too.
That alone is enough of a fist pump moment. Yes.
Also, I'm Judd Nelson. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. And we did it in front of her dad.
Oh man, I made out with Claire Standish on her dad's car while he watched. He's telling his friends.
Powerless, yes.
She was powerless against it. Yeah. But yeah, that's the end of the movie.
Right.
All right, Dave. Anything else?
Only other thing is that this movie's poster was parodied.
Oh, yeah. It definitely was.
Yes. And even though the film that took the design wasn't satirizing this one, if you look at the poster or box art for Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, the Sawyer family is posed similarly to the characters from this movie.
It's great.
It's
man.
so funny.
Leatherface is like laying there.
I know. That's the coolest part is that like Leatherface is in the John Bender position in the back.
Oh, yeah.
And the main difference is that instead of brooding sideways to the camera, Gunnar Hansen is like extending his fist in the air in a send-up of John's like end credits freeze frame pose. And somebody I knew, I can't remember who now, like had this poster on their bedroom wall, and I remember just sitting in that room staring at that poster. Like, and I had not seen The Breakfast Club. I was a little kid.
Yeah.
But I just remember looking at it, maybe because I knew I wasn't supposed to be looking at Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Yeah.
I think it's Flat Top or Chop Top who's like actually doing the
he's
Molly
laying
Ringwald
there.
pose.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, good stuff.
So awesome, dude. So, Dave, would you recommend this movie?
Absolutely, man. The Breakfast Club, everybody. Check it out.
This is a must-watch. It's like the #1 high school movie on any list about high school movies, and it's just as relevant today as it was 40 years ago.
Yes, and we will probably bring it up again on countless numbers of Question of the Week episodes, as we have already.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is such a great examination of teenage social dynamics.
Yes.
Like, you can't find anything better than this.
I know, they did it so well, and it's just like they've been trying to remake it ever since, and they just never really captured it.
Stop, everybody.
Exactly.
Don't remake it.
Yes.
Just watch it again.
Right.
All right, so that wraps things up. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to the show anywhere you get your podcast, rate it, review it, and most of all, share it. It gets more dudes listening to the dudes, and you go to dudesonmovies.com and find anything you need right there.
Yep, and we're on Facebook, Blue Sky, TikTok, and Instagram. Look for Dudes on Movies, and our email address is dudesonmovies@gmail.com.
That's right. And Dave, we have a question of the week. What is the question of the week?
What songs always make you think about a certain movie?
this one for sure.
Yes.
Everybody, there's plenty. Hit us up, let us know, and stay tuned next week when we do 1960s Village of the Damned, directed by Wolf Rilla and starring George Sanders and Barbara Shelley. Sorry, we were laughing earlier about Wolf Rilla. It's a great name.
It is.
All right, so until next week, I'm your dude Scott.
I'm your dude Dave.
And we'll see you next time.